Today, I'm going to be building an AI SaaS product right in front of you guys, pretty much live. I'm going to be basically starting at the complete beginning. I don't even have an idea yet. I'm going to go through ideation, planning, building, testing, authentication, payment processing, connecting it to a real domain. I'm going to do all of that in front of you guys so that after this video, you basically know exactly how you can find some sort of idea, turn it into a product, and then actually go look at getting some customers for your product. So I don't want to waste any time. Let's just get straight into the video. So there's 6 major P's that we're going to be focusing on today when we're building this sort of like SaaS sprint. So the first P is pain. I'm basically going to pretend that I am in your shoes right now. You might be starting from completely zero, a little bit of AI knowledge, but you don't have an idea or a product. So that's what I want to kind of simulate today. So pain. We obviously want to build something that people will actually use. Now, in a perfect world, the way that I would actually go about this is I would go get feedback. I would say, hey, here's my business idea. How much would you pay for this? Would you pay for this? And I would get a bunch of validation before I actually build, or I'd build like a little POC, proof of concept, to just say, hey, here's a demo. When I build this out for real, would you build this? Would you guys find this valuable? And then I would go build it. So basically sell before you build. So we're going to be using AI here to help us find some pain points and find the business idea. From there, we're going to step into promise. It has to be super clear and basically one sentence on the landing page. What does this tool do? How does this tool promise that it's going to answer the pain that we already found? From there, we're going to be actually doing the product. We're going to be planning it out. We're going to be building it. We're going to be testing it. And then, that's basically the actual core product that we're building today. The fourth one is the plumbing. So we're going to have to wire up things like the payment processing, things like the authentication, managing the database. Obviously, when you have a product like this, the goal is that you one day can scale it to, potentially thousands and thousands of users. So you need to make sure the plumbing is there to actually handle that. The fifth one that we have is the packaging. So making sure we have stuff like the brand guidelines, consistent colors, it just feels like a professional product that someone could actually maybe go to the website and just buy or subscribe to. And then the last one is proof. So basically all throughout this whole thing, we're going to be doing so much verification because at the end of the day, I don't know how to read Python. I don't know how to code in Python. I don't know what other languages we might use, but AI can do it really well. But it's on us to be the project manager, to be the one that's saying, hey, verify this until you're confident that it's done and prove to me that you're confident. So it's all about how can we actually utilize the more intelligent and more capable coding agents that we're going to be able to use, but we still remain in control of the judgment. And, at the end of the day, if the product fails, it's on us. We can't blame AI. We blame ourselves. So I'm sure you guys are curious about what tech stack we're going to be using today. We're going to be using 3 main ones to sort of drive everything, but I'm sure there's going to be, other APIs or other payment processors. There's going to be a lot of things that go into this build. But the 3 core that I want to call to your attention are, we're going to be using Codex. So I have the ChatGPT desktop app that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using Codex through this. I'm also going to be using Claude. So Claude Code inside of the Claude desktop app. So you can download that as well. And then finally, we're going to be using Glido to actually talk to everything. It's basically going to be the voice layer so that I'm not going to be bottlenecked by typing. I'm just going to be able to talk as fast as I can and do this as fast as I can. So if you want to sort of follow along with this video, then I would definitely recommend you get all 3 of these things so that you can basically move quick and you can have different AI models and different coding harnesses, get different perspectives on your build, which I think is really helpful. If you prefer Codex and you just want to use Codex, or if you prefer Claude and you just want to use Claude, that's totally fine. But I found it to be very helpful to be able to have different coding harnesses and models take a peek at what I'm doing and help me sort of play devil's advocate, stress test it, things like that. Okay, now how do I think about the difference between, our friend Claude and our friend ChatGPT or Codex or whatever you want to call them? So I really like to think of Claude as my kind of thought partner. It feels more creative, especially if I'm able to come down here and switch this on to Fable. It feels like it has more of that wise old owl sort of perspective. Whereas when I jump over here to Codex, this thing feels like a Rottweiler. It is basically going to take the task. It's going to take the command I give it, and it's just going to execute. And it's going to keep executing and keep verifying until it's good, until it's done. And so I think it's really great to be able to use them together in tandem. And with that being said, I'm going to start off our build here in the pain section, trying to find an idea. I'm going to be using Claude for this. And by the way, if you guys are curious on where I'm actually building this, what I did is inside of my Herc2 project, which is my AIOS, if you guys have been following me for a while, I've got a folder called Other Worlds, and I made a new world in here called AI SaaS Sprint that's completely empty. And this is the folder that both Codex and Claude Code will be working out of so that they can see the same stuff. So anyways, let's get started here. I'm going to open up Glido and I'm just going to start yapping. All right. So what I'm trying to do today is build an AI SaaS product. I'm trying to show my audience how much they can actually do with AI. And the first most important part of building a SaaS product is we have to have an actual pain point. We have to answer a problem or solve a problem that the market actually has. So a lot of my audience might not have, a big YouTube channel or a big community to leverage data from, and we have that ability. So basically, the idea is I want you to use our primary data, which could be things like YouTube comments, people talking in our school community, what are the problems they're having. But then also I want you to go on more of the publicly accessible data, like secondary forms of Reddit, LinkedIn, X, Instagram. I want you to look through this type of stuff and help me identify a pain point that we can actually solve, or a few pain points that we can solve. What we're looking to do here is we're looking to build some sort of AI SaaS product that realistically can be built in one day, something that is very visual and the promise is very clear. So it's not like a super, super technical, like CRM sort of product that they would have to get onboarded to and that they would have to get familiar with over the, a week or two, get trained up. I'm looking for something that people can sign up for and get value immediately. Like within 5 to 10 minutes, they can use it, they can understand it, and then they'll get value. So what I want you to do here is I want you to act as the orchestrator. I want you to spin up different subagents, and I want you to do research, scrape different methods, and then at the end, come back, consolidate everything, and just give me clear signals of a couple ideas, and then from there, I will choose. Let me know if there's anything specifically that you need from me as far as like API keys, or if you don't have access to certain data, because I've already set you up with my Herc2 project, which you can go in there and you can use. You might have more reach into some things, but just let me know if there's anything that you can't reach that you would really like to. So obviously, guys, because this is sort of more of like a challenge style video, I'm going to assume that you have a little bit of previous like Claude Code or Codex knowledge. If you don't, then I'd recommend checking out this video right up here. It's going to walk through a lot of the basics, how you set up different like environment variables, API keys, and it will make more sense when you then hop into a video like this. So if you want to check out that full free course, check it out and then hop back over here. Because you can see here, my Claude Code was able to have a YouTube API, school community access, X, Firecrawl, Perplexity. So it's spinning up 5 different research agents in parallel in order to start doing all this. So throughout this challenge, I'm going to be thinking about how can we do multiple things at once, just because we're trying to move through this fast. And, it's already 9 o'clock. So we've already, used basically 15 minutes. And I have a feeling that the majority of the time spent in this challenge is going to be the AI processing and us just waiting for things like these background agents to run, rather than me actually building or prompting. So that's why we're going to try to stack as much as possible. But I do want to wait until we know the idea, because then once we know the idea, I think we can start having a different terminal, start to build out some of the packaging, like, the title, or not the title, the name, the logo, the colors, maybe even start building the landing page once we have an idea of what the promise is. But right now, we're just kind of bottlenecked. We're waiting on the whole ideation and research phase. So I'll check in with you guys once I've figured out what the product is going to be. It's okay though, because while we wait, I can have some coffee, and I'm working on a little Hermes agent right here. So, I'll just keep monitoring, but I can still be productive while that's going on. Okay, guys, so it's almost 10 o'clock now. So that took quite a while, but this is arguably the most important part, because the idea, the pain, is the entire product. That's what everything is built around. So let's take a look at what this scraped. It looked through about 16,000 YouTube comments. It looked through about 8,000 comments and, within posts inside of my Plus community. It looked at about 4,000 tweets, and it also looked at Reddit. It was still running at this moment, but I asked how many it did, and it looked through about 20,000 comments on Reddit. So this is the whole idea of being able to outsource the thinking and the data collection, but not outsourcing the understanding. And that's exactly what we're doing here, because in order for me to read this many comments and scrape as much as this just did, it would have taken me far longer than about an hour. But now we have to look at this data and understand what it's telling us and what we should build. And it basically gave us these final 3 recommendations. So a client proposal and handoff pack. So essentially what this is you are putting in basically the build or the proposal that you are sending over to the client, and then it will come back with a bunch of stuff like a document, a diagram, a bunch of other things. So kind of like helping you run an AI agency. Then we have a social visual generator. So carousels, infographics, to be able to post things on different social medias. And then an ad creative resizer. So honestly, it recommended this first one. I think that fits more with what my audience is actually looking for. It's a product that I could fit right into an existing product. So it just makes more sense. And I think that it's very practical. Now, one thing about this is there's truly no moat that I see, because someone could use this product. They could then basically use it for a month, understand how it works, understand what they like about it, and then build their own Claude skills and their own systems around it. And that is something that you just have to understand when you're building something out. Especially right now, the product game is kind of scary because of how fast different tools are evolving and how different things are becoming open source. So really what I want to recommend here is I was able to leverage my own primary data and see what my already paying customers want and what their pain points are. And that's exactly what you should be doing. And if you don't have an existing product or audience, you should really be looking at your own subject matter expertise. If you know a lot about construction companies, then you should be doing this sort of research and scraping for pain points, but within the niche that you actually understand. Because otherwise, if you send off sort of a generic prompt like this and there's nothing specific to you and your knowledge, then you're going to probably get the same AI recommendations that everyone else is doing if they're sending off some sort of product or some sort of prompt like, hey, help me find a good business idea. So the idea is really important. And I also want to show you guys something else that it surfaced right here. So initially, remember how I said like, hey, maybe like $5 to $25 a month. It said based on the data, that price is too low, and now it has direct quotes. Reddit surfaced 835 price sentences with a consistent band. So like just a tool that does one boring thing really well can charge $50 a month, and people are happy to pay that. You need 100 to 200 people paying 25 to $50 a month for something that saves them time every single week. So let's say we're going to go off and build this client proposal handoff pack sort of product. Let's start figuring out now, how do we actually move forward with this? We have the pain. We need to start building out the promise, the product, the plumbing, and the packaging, and all the while making sure that we're verifying and proving that this all works as we're building. So before we get going, let's just make sure that our files are all set up so that we're able to stay organized and not get too messy. This is the only thing that currently exists in this project is one folder called research with 5 different markdown files of YouTube, school, blah, 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 competitive landscape. And these are pretty in depth, right? Like if I click into this competitive landscape markdown file, you can see that this thing is, like I said, very in depth. It goes over pricing. It goes over tools with different, like actual metrics. All of these are different sources that I could click in and look at. So there's a lot of data here. I mean, this thing ran for like an hour just doing research. So we're going to be able to use all of this stuff later because it's already in our project. And as I'm using Codex later or Claude later, it can read through these things. Okay, so what I want to do now is just get set up with like our Claude.md and our agents.md so that the rest of the project understands what we're doing. All right, great. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with sort of that client handoff product where they're able to create an account. They're able to send in sort of like, hey, here's the workflow I'm going to build. Here's the business that I'm building this for. Kind of the portal that they're able to manage some of these client projects from. And they'll get the deliverables like a branded PDF. They'll get visualizations. They'll get diagrams. And they will get other things to think about to send over to the client, like credential handoff information and client expectations, things like that. So now that we know this is the direction we're going to take this product in, let's go ahead and set up a claude.md file and just duplicate that over to another one called agents.md, because I'm going to be utilizing both Codex and Claude Code inside of this project. So just help us get set up with the project. The idea, once again, is that we're building out this product in one day. Yeah, just go ahead and get set up so that we can keep on sort of like planning and building and getting everything set up. Okay, so we're getting some of this foundational stuff set up, and then we're going to move into a planning phase. But before we do that, what I want to do is I want to get started on the packaging before we actually start building this thing out, just because we can do these things at the same time. They're not really dependent on each other. So the packaging. So I'm going to be using Codex for this because it has GPT Image 2, which I think is the best AI image generation model out there right now. And we're just going to get started on ideating on the name of this product as well as what it's going to look like, the color scheme, the feel. Okay, so inside of our project, you should see a research folder. We just did a bunch of research on what product we actually want to build inside of this project. And we're ending up going with a client sort of handover, sort of like a AI agency client management product where people will log in. They will be able to upload information about the project that they're working on with the client, and it will create them, a proposal, a PDF, maybe even like the audit. It'll give them the deliverables based on their natural language, and it's going to be professionally branded, as well as there'll be images and diagrams and whatnot. So that's the idea for this product. Ask me any questions if you have any about it, so that we can go ahead and design, like the name of it, and you can give me a bunch of different logo variations and color schemes so that we can have a sort of like a design system ready to go for this entire product. And remember, these things are working in the exact same folder. You can see here the agents.md and the claude.md just got created by our other Claude, and we have the research folder with the 5 markdown files. So these 2 projects are working on the exact same thing. These 2 coding agents are working on the same stuff. We just have to make sure that they're not like overwriting each other, which right now isn't an issue because they're working on very different things. Okay, so as you can see, the claude.md and the agents.md has been set up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a skill called session handoff, which is basically just going to give us a summary of what's been done, files that are important so that I can clear the session and paste it back in. And if you guys want to access this skill completely free, all you have to do is go to my free school community. The link for that's down in the description. You'll go into my free school, you will go to the classroom, and you will click on all YouTube resources, and you can download everything for free that I ever give away from my YouTube videos. And so now that it's giving me this full handoff, as you can see, like where it started, what we talked about, key files, all this kind of stuff, I can basically just copy that message. I can clear out this session because you can see we were at like half of our context window, paste it back in, and now it's basically going to pick up exactly where we were on a fresh session. So I'm going to use this particular session to help us sort of with the planning of the whole product. But before I actually start prompting this to do the planning, let's jump back over to Codex because it has some questions for us. I apologize for the jumping around, and I know it might feel a little chaotic, but this is us trying to move fast, and this is pretty realistic of the way that I typically like to work. I am sort of juggling different sessions, and I'm moving between them relatively quickly. I've found out that I can do that in a way where I'm not sort of like decreasing my quality because of the jumping around and because of the context switching. Sometimes, obviously, if you're in deep flow, you need to stay on one. But when I'm setting up a lot of these foundational things, I like to jump around. It just helps me feel like I'm doing more with less time. And, we're kind of up against the clock here. Okay. So the strongest positioning it says here is to turn messy project notes and workflows into polished client-ready deliverables in minutes. I like that, but I don't feel like that's strong enough yet for our actual promise. And in order to do that, we have to sort of think about our avatar and the pain point that they're feeling. But it is starting to kind of create a vision for what this is going to look and feel like. So it's asking me about some questions here that I'm just going to go ahead and turn on Glido and start yapping about. So to question number one, I would say the main moment here is that after they have gone through like discovery calls and sales calls and they're ready to send over some deliverables to actually close the sale, they need that to be branded, they need it to be professional, and they need it to be consistent. And I think that our avatar that we're looking at here are people that are just kind of getting started in the AI agency game, or they've been running one and they have a few clients and they're starting to get overwhelmed trying to manage the deliverables and the things that they need to do. So that's kind of the avatar we're looking at. We're obviously targeting AI agency owners, and their pain point is just feeling overwhelmed and feeling like they don't have a structure to what they deliver to their clients. Now, for number two, I think the naming style, it needs to feel something. Yeah, I think literal is good because we have one very specific promise that we're trying to make, and it should align with the name so that it feels very consistent. It's very clear what this product does. How should the brand feel? I think it should feel like premium consultancy. Number four, should it be visibly associated with Nate Herc? It should be completely independent of my name, my brand. Is an available.com required, or are there domains such as .app? That's a good question. Don't worry about that right now. We will figure out the actual domain to host this on later. I just want to prioritize a good name for the actual product. And then, are there any colors, brands, logos, or visual styles you strongly like or dislike? I would like to stay away from the color red, and I want this to feel very modern and clean. But I don't want any of this to obviously feel AI vibe coded or feel like AI slop. So it should feel professional, it should feel clean, and help us also create the like one line promise that's a little stronger than the one that you gave us earlier. And then from there, I want you to start iterating on different logos, different concepts, different color schemes, all that kind of stuff so that we can lock in a final decision. Okay, so now that that's off and running, I'm going to let this thing cook. I'm going to hop back over to the Claude session, and we're going to get going on the planning. So it's asking us some questions here, and we're not going to worry about that yet. I'm just going to block off that, and I'm going to tell it what I want it to do here. So here's my thought process. There's a lot that's going to go into the build, and we're probably going to want to utilize different sessions to be able to build different things at the same time without getting in each other's way. So that's what I want this session to help me figure out. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to switch over to Fable, because now we're really going to get into the whole planning and sort of like looking down the line and trying to see if we can look around the corners, right? So I'm on Fable here, and I'm going to have it help me sort of plan out the structure. And what I want to do is I want to have like a plan document in our files. I want to have something that all the agents can look at and pick up and basically see like a running task list of what's been done and what needs to be done and what's maybe in progress so that they can see what everyone's working on. And I think that having a plan doc like that will just keep this project feeling more organized. So let me start yapping into Claude here. All right, so I actually have a different Codex session helping right now figure out the name, the one-line promise, the logo, the color schemes, stuff like that. Your job in this session, you're Fable 5, you're super intelligent. You need to help me figure out and plan out the actual build. So what that means is your deliverable right now is a plan document, something that you can use when you are delegating work to other subagents to actually build. You're not the executor, you are just the manager. You're the project manager here. So, like I said, figure out what this is going to look like from a building perspective. If you don't yet have a clear vision of the actual product, then ask me some questions and let's brainstorm about that a little bit until you feel confident that you know exactly what the user experience and on the technical side, what needs to happen in order to build this out. So here's my vision. The POC, version 1, is we're going to turn basically a discovery call transcript and a sales call transcript, however many they want to dump in. They will be able to dump those in, and that's going to kick off a new project in their dashboard for client A, let's just call it for now. The AI on the back end is going to analyze those transcripts, analyze any of the extra information that the user has given us, and it's going to create them a full deck on what was talked about. And this is really important because the goal of this deck is to persuade the client to actually engage in a partnership. So it needs to, at the beginning, highlight the pain, right? Like, hey, here's the pain that you're feeling in your business. Here's where you are constrained. And here is the solutions, or here are the solutions that we talked about in order to actually resolve those constraints for you. And here are the expected outcomes that we can receive. So what's really important when you're working with a client is that you are showing them that their investment in you, their investment in this project is going to receive a 10x on that. So we need to show them, hey, here's the pain. And after the solution is done, this is why you're going to have a 10x on that investment. This is basically the justification for the price. And then we need to show them the numbers that are going to move, because we're not selling the journey, we're selling the destination. So, hey, for example, we talked about your pain of feeling like you don't have enough business coming in. And what we realized is that you actually need a better system for follow-up and reactivation of leads rather than getting more leads in. So we were able to reframe you there. This is the solution. And now the metric that we're looking for is you're currently having about 5 no-shows per week. This AI system is going to move that no-show rate from 5 to 2 within 30 days. And that's basically like the metric that we're looking at moving, because that metric in the business owner's mind has a very, very clear correlation to the bottom line, to the actual revenue of the business. So that's just an example of the way we should be framing this. And then it's going to get into sort of like the technical details of what this looks like, visualizing it, because business owners and people that aren't technical really like to look at things that are visual. So this deck will be very professional, very visual, very outcome driven. And then we also need to have the ability for for the users of this system to upload their own case studies, to upload their own specialties, so that every deck is created in a personalized way. Because we need these decks to feel personalized from the actual agency owner themselves with, hey, by the way, we did similar builds for these clients and here were their results. We did this, this, and this. That's why we're confident we can deliver this, this, and this. So there needs to be that aspect of personalization as well. They need to be able to add their own logo and their own brand guidelines so that all of their PDFs are coming out branded and professional as well. And that's sort of the general base idea that I have for kind of like version 1 of this product. So my idea with the to-do list that you're building right now, or sort of this planning doc, is that we're able to see all of the different steps that you imagine we need to build out so that we can start to delegate work out to different sessions. We can have different agents working on different work trees so they're not overwriting each other's work. And we can move as much in parallel as possible to get this done as soon as possible. Okay, so that was a ton of information that I just said in there. But like I said, the majority of this build is actually just me using judgment, me being the project manager of agents. As you can see, the way that I've been talking to Codex and Claude Code, and it's going to get even more intense once we really start building. But it's just basically a lot of strategically prompting and then working in verification so that you aren't the one fact checking every single line, but you are being able to basically be given something from an agent that says, hey, I'm confident that this works, and here's why, here's what I tested. All right, so hopping back into Codex, let's see how it's coming along over here with the branding side. So the collision check eliminated several obvious names. Close Kit is already being used by a nearly identical AI proposal product, while Client Ready is already being used for an AI report service. The 3 cleanest literal territories are Client Pack, Scope Pack, and Proposal Ready. I'm treating Client Pack as the leading working name and will compare it against the other 2 visually before recommending a lock. The first 3 studies confirming the name, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing 2 more. So it's starting to create some branding for us, as you can see. So we have Client Pack. I actually really like this. It's like there's a C and there's a P, and there's this color scheme, which is pretty professional. We have Scope Pack. I don't quite like this one as much, but it's really not too bad. We've got Proposal Ready.
I like this, but this feels a little bit more AI. I don't know exactly why. It just feels a little more AI. It feels a little bit more playful than kind of like premium. And then we've got this client pack as well. Okay, so I mean, so far, I really like this one. I think that this feels consulting grade. Let me close out of here and see what it's telling us, what it's yapping about over here. It's okay, so it's calling this A editorial fold, modern, approachable, and balance between SaaS and consultancy. I really like that one. These definitely this feels like I don't know, like a financial wealth advisor or something. But I think this one felt very SaaS. This one felt AI SaaS, whereas this one just felt trusted. So I'm going to go with this one. I really like this one. All right, so I want to go with A. I like the client pack editorial fold version. Let's go ahead and lock that in. And now we can also see the actual messaging. Turn discovery calls into client-ready proposals. The one-line promise is turn discovery calls into polished, branded deliverables that help close the client. I like that. And the short brand line is discovery in, client-ready out. Cool. So before we lock in these three kind of like pieces of messaging, let's see what other AI agents think. So what I want you to do now on the messaging, I like those three, the headline, the one-line promise, and the short brand line, but I want to make sure it's extremely clear and it answers pain points. So what I want you to do is spin up a few different agent personas: business owners, agency owners, small business owners, CEOs. And I want you to have them read the messaging, look at the logo and the name, and tell us what they think about the branding. And if they trust it, if they think it's strong enough, or if it feels very generic. And once we have sort of like this collection of other opinions, it'll help me make a better decision. So just spin up those agents and tell me what they think. You don't have to have them debate. You don't have to have them give you a deep analysis. Just tell me what their first impression of the brand is. And this is something I do a lot, and it's really, really helpful. Having teams of agents, having different, sub agents, or even debates, even war rooms, having them discuss and argue things and then give you the consensus, it really helps you make decisions when sometimes, you have three options that you like, but you just have to get a little bit of persuasion in one way, or you have to hear, the holes in certain plans or the problems with certain plans. That really helps me out a lot when I am planning things or when I'm building things out. Okay, so it went through this kind of like sweep of different personas from business owner, agency owner, small business owner, CEO, and it made a few tweaks. So now the headline is turn discovery calls into client-ready proposal packs. Here's the one-line promise, which is more specific: polished, branded proposal, scope, ROI breakdown, and project plan without rebuilding every document from scratch. So it hits on that pain point. And then the short brand line is discovery in, client-ready out. Now here's one thing I do want to call out. Obviously, this in itself is not enough to be a SaaS product. I don't think that it's enough of a pain point to really sell, especially for high LTV, because people, like I said, will take it and will do something else with it. But what this is going to do is this is a good V1 for us to build on top of. Once we set up sort of like this hub, the vision of this could be, this is basically the operating system that people are going to be able to use inside of all of their client management. Maybe it's a portal now where people can say, hey, log into this portal, Mr. or Mrs. Client, and this is where you can see our progress. This is where you can see, submitting tickets, things like that. This could really start to evolve based on other feedback and other signals that we're hearing from the audience or from maybe our beta users. And so maybe this is something that you get people on for free to start. You start collecting feedback and then you're able to charge later. Because I know the hard part that a lot of you guys are going to bring up is like, okay, well, the hardest part is to get clients. And that is true. And that's why it's very tough to start off, kind of like building a business as a SaaS product. And that's why a lot of us are going through the service-based route first, because it's easier to be sort of like high touch. It's easier to get some data on what works, what doesn't, what are the problems, and then sort of start to use all that knowledge to build something like a product. Okay, so two other things I want to kick off now. We're going to go back to Codex, and what we're going to do now is we're going to spin up a one-page landing page that's basically a waiting list. And I'm going to just let this thing go at it. So what I'm going to do is a /goal, which means that I'm able to set a goal and it's going to keep pursuing. And what I'm going to do here is, hey, so now that we know this information, when it comes to branding, we know the name, we know the logo, the color scheme, I want you to create a really simple, professional, one-page landing page. What this means is I want you to create a waiting list for people to be able to sign up for access once this product is ready. So we can start going around, getting feedback, and validating if it's something that people are actually interested enough to get on the waiting list for. So we should have obviously the logo up top. We should have the headline and the promise up top as well, so that they understand what they'd be signing up for. And then a little bit of information down below as far as what the product will actually do. So if you have any specific questions about what it's going to do, then feel free to ask. You can also investigate inside this project. You can look at the planning doc. You can look at other conversations that I've been having about it. But basically just create us a super simple one-page landing page that we can start to either run ads to or, hit to our email list or drop in different communities, things like that. Somewhere where we can just send people. Once you have actually finished building that, don't stop until you've validated it. So open it up, take screenshots, make sure the waiting list works, make sure that when they sign up for, when they put their email in there, make sure it actually captures somewhere. Like we need to capture that somewhere, whether that be a Google Sheet or it sends me an email, whatever you want to do. Just make sure that it's actually all completely functional before we actually push that anywhere. Okay, so that was me working in verification. Because if I just told it without saying that, it would probably give me a landing page that wouldn't work. It would just be, an HTML file. People could put in an email and hit submit, and then nothing would happen. So hopefully, because I put in that verification loop, it's able to consistently keep building, testing, and testing, and then give us back something that actually works. And that's all part of sort of like managing these agents better with better prompts and things like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over to our Claude session where we had Fable give us this plan. So I'm going to open up this doc and we're going to take a look at it real quick. We have our build plan for the pre-sale deck generator. We have some decisions that were locked. We have the user experience. So they sign up. They have a one-time setup. So they can put in their logos. They can put in their case studies that they had. They can put in anything else. They can start up new projects. So they'll put in the client name, the client business. They can dump transcripts. It'll get analyzed. It'll have a review screen on everything that's been sort of discussed before it actually creates the PDF. It generates the deck. And then they have a dashboard list with all of their past projects and other things that they can do, edit them, regenerate them, whatever. So here's the structure of the deck. We have the cover, where you are today, the real constraint, the plan, what moves, the math, how it works, why us, scope, investment, and next steps. And then we have the actual architecture of the app. So it's going to be a Next.js app router. We're going to have Supabase on the back end. We're going to have a Stripe checkout. Okay, perfect. It's going to have 2 AI calls per project, which will be to analyze things and to create the deck. So this is pretty in depth, right? This is basically the build plan. We have phase 0, the foundation. We have phase 1, and then we have phase 2. And there's a lot going on here, right? Like there's basically A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H different work streams in here. And the idea is maybe we can have these all being built in parallel. We'll see how that's possible or not, but we're obviously going to be using Fable to delegate all of that around because it knows how to do this better than I do. So here's what we're going to do now. I'm going to do a /goal prompts in Claude Code as well. This is not just Codex specific. It's also available in Claude Code. So I'm going to be able to set this condition here. Now, I'm going to prompt this thing in a very, very particular way where I'm once again telling Fable 5 that it is the project manager. It should not be executing anything because that would waste a lot of our Fable credits. It should just be delegating work around. And real quick, guys, one thing I wanted to throw out there before we really get into the weeds of this video is that building and scaling a SaaS product successfully is not easy. And I hope that because of this video, you don't think that that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm seeing what's going on behind the scenes with Glido and how complex it is and how much the team is working on the build and constantly iterating. It's not easy. But what it is 100 times easier than what it used to be before AI. And I think that a lot of us have so many ideas that we want to build, but we just never do it. So really the point of this video is I want you guys to see in one day what I'm able to achieve just by not being technical at all and just by being curious and prompting and managing agents and having them verify things. The way that I'm doing this and sort of the mindset that I have when I'm building all of this out today is really what I want you guys to actually take away from the video. So now that I've got that out the way, let's just get right back into it. Okay, so you are the project manager of this entire project. You need to see that it, from end to end, all gets implemented right and all gets built right. Because you, at the end of the day, are responsible for any of the mistakes here. So what I want you to do is you're going to work off of that build plan. You're going to work through these phases by delegating work to different sub-agents using Opus or Sonnet, whatever you see fit for the complexity of the task. So what I want you to do is you can use dynamic workflows, you can use just sub-agents, you can use agent teams, whatever you see fit, because you know how to do this best, you know how to manage the project best. Your job is to do this as fast as possible, meaning anything that can be done in parallel, do them in parallel. There's no need to wait and do this as an assembly line. So figure out, based on your build plan, what can be done together and what has dependencies, and just execute this as fast as you can. If you need to use different work trees, feel free. If you want to just spin up a bunch of different sub-agents, feel free. But what's really important is that you're having the agents write progress back to either the build plan, or each agent independently is creating a new folder and is saying, hey, here's what I've done, here's what I'm still working on, so that you can always check in on them to see where they are, to make sure that they're not overwriting each other, and to make sure that you're constantly verifying what they're doing and giving them feedback. So your end deliverable to me is basically a finished V1, a finished POC that we can get in there and we can test and see if we're ready to kind of like move on to the next phase of this thing. A few things I imagine potentially getting in your way would be setting up like a Supabase connection because you might not have that API key, setting up the Stripe integration. If there's anything like that, build out the supporting infrastructure around it, build out the plumbing, and then you can basically flag me at the end when you finished and say, hey, I need this API key and I need this API key. But that's the only thing I should have to do. You should be able to then take the API keys and set up everything else that has to do with the front end and the back end. You should be thinking about how people pay and what it looks like when they get onboarded, where their accounts get made, how that happens in the back end, and how we as admins are going to manage the infrastructure in the back end of our users and our databases and things like that as well. This has to be idiot proof on the customer journey side as well as on the admin side. So that's your goal. Go ahead and do whatever you need to do to accomplish these tasks. Okay, so that was obviously a very big prompt, a huge / goal. So this is probably going to take a few hours, and that doesn't surprise me. So what I'm going to do though is I'm able to use this session on my phone. As you can see, we have remote control and we can turn this on. As you can see, that just got turned on, which means I can go into my phone and I can actually manage this. So right here, I'm not sure if you can see, but this is the prompt that I just sent off, right? I'm able to manage this now from my phone, which means I'm going to be able to maybe go make a quick bit of lunch, maybe go on a walk, maybe go down to the gym, and I can just keep checking in on this so that I'm not wasting time because this is, like I said, going to run for a little bit. Because that's really what we're doing now. We're kind of waiting. We have Claude over here working on the actual build. We have Codex over here working on the packaging. And I guess the only other things that we could do maybe is we could go ahead and give them a Supabase API key and a Stripe API key or something so that they could start building in the actual integrations. But for now, I'm not going to mess with them. I'm just going to go ahead and wait. And then we will come back when these are done and we'll see what else we need to do. But this is why this stuff is so powerful. I mean, I was able to send off one request and it's been building things, viewing them, iterating, viewing again, verifying, iterating, using the sites integration to see if it's working. It's, creating this type of stuff. And now it's just going to keep going until it has proven to me that it's all working, which is just really, really cool. And then on the other side, with what Fable's doing right now, it basically was able to work off that plan doc, and now it knows exactly what to do. And it's running a bunch of different agents in parallel, as you can see. It's spinning up tons of different workers to do one very specific thing, which is really, really cool because it's really tough to have one agent do everything. It gets confused, the context fills up, you get the rot, you just get all of this type of bloat. But if you're able to have one main like Fable manager that delegates off tasks, spins up new agents, and has them do one very specific thing very well, the quality of everything is just so much better. As you can see, it's already finished all these agents, right? Now I can view the transcript and I can see exactly what they did, and I can keep looking into what they're doing in real time. And so we're still, like I said, very much in control, but we're not having to be the middleman between everything. So don't underestimate how powerful this stuff is when you're able to kind of clearly have a vision for something and then have something like Fable or Codex or whatever it is help you sort of orchestrate in the right way using a bunch of different agents to help you achieve that vision. And so really the main point I'm trying to make in this video is that there's a lot of things that you might not know. Like maybe the idea of, oh, how do I even integrate Stripe into my own app? How do I even do that? You don't have to know. You have to outsource that thinking and that research to something like Claude, and then it will say, hey, in order to do this, I need you to set up this connection. I need you to give me this key, and then I need you to enable that in the actual UI. And then you can just go ahead and do that, and it will take care of the rest. I'm not trying to say, hey, in this video, I'm going to make $1 million with my AI app. I'm showing you what it looks like to actually build the thought process of outsourcing the thinking, but still keeping yourself in the loop in the right areas, and hopefully motivating you guys to realize that you can give AI a lot more ambitious goals than you actually thought that you could. And you can really just start to leverage this even more to do even more yourself. I mean, just take a look at all these other agents we have. We have currently 9 that are running, anywhere from intaking and reviewing the UI, the data layer, the API routes, viewing the PDFs, looking at the extraction spikes and fixing them, even checking on Puppeteer to make sure that it can go ahead and click around on things. It's super, super cool. And because Fable isn't doing this, because it's Opus or Sonnet doing all this, our limit is going to last a lot longer because we have a weekly Fable limit, which we've only used 3% of, even though we've done so much work already with Fable. All right, guys, so take a look at this. The client pack landing page is done. So we can go ahead and open it up and it looks like this. Honestly, I think it looks really good. Like, you can tell it was made by AI because it has similar formatting, the big hero text, the kind of the hero image over here. but it's not bad at all. And when you think about these little images that it had to create, it definitely has a nice kind of like professional vibe. Even the depth in this little logo here, I really like this from a first pass. We could obviously iterate more if we want to. I'd say this little pulsing icon thing is very AI, but this looks good. The next question I had for it then was like, okay, so how are the emails being stored? Because obviously that's the whole point of this, is to collect emails. And it did all of these verification checks, right? It said that the emails are being stored in the site's database. So that's not something that we really had the ability to access. So then I came back and said, okay, so how do I access these? It says that you could put it on a different password protected waitlist page. And I said, yeah, go ahead and set that up. And so after it did that, now we have a different admin page that I can go ahead and sign into. And when I sign in, I now get this second page. I can sign out. This is, the email that I signed in with. I could refresh this. I could download this as a CSV, and I'm able to see the most recent sign up, the total signups, and I get all this data. So let's say if this actually works, I'll go into here, I'll put in a fake email, and then we'll go ahead and join the wait list, see what happens. It says you are on the list. We'll go back into the admin. Let's see if we can give this a refresh. There we go. We now have a new entry signed in right here. And now we have basically an email list growing of people that are interested in this product. So the next step now, while Claude is still building out all the stuff, obviously, like I said, this is going to run for quite a bit. So we're going to keep letting this thing cook. What I want to do now on this side is we want to actually be able to expose this to an actual domain, because right now you guys can't see. Let me just copy this. This is the domain that's being hosted on right now, clientpack-waitlist.nateherc.chatgpt.site, which is cool because that is a URL that anyone could access. But what we want to do now is we want to be able to get this to something that we actually own, and it looks a little more professional, because if you send people to this URL, it just doesn't have the right vibe, right? That's clearly a ChatGPT website. So what I want to do is push this onto a GitHub repository so we can keep that code base. And we're going to push that to something called Vercel, which lets us basically host that URL. So, okay, now that we have this site done, I want you to create a new GitHub repository for this. So you should be authenticated into my GitHub already. Go ahead and create a new repository for this. You can just call it the Client Pack landing page. And then once you've got that pushed, I'm going to connect that to Vercel so we can actually deploy this on our own site. Now, if you've never used GitHub before, it's very, very simple. Just type in github.com. It's free to create an account. And this will actually let you sync your Vercel account with GitHub. So go to GitHub, make an account, and then you're going to have to authenticate in to Codex or Claude Code. Just basically say, hey, here's my GitHub account. Help me authenticate in. And it will basically pull up like an OAuth sign in. You'll sign in. It's super, super easy. And then it will have access to help you with your repositories, or basically just a code base. And then you're going to also go to Vercel. And this is where you're going to be able to manage other things that you want to put onto a real live URL. And this is where you can actually buy your own custom URLs to put on an app. So for example, right here, I've got nateherc.com, and this will deploy by default on nateherc-com.vercel.app. So it's doing the same thing that ChatGPT does when it has like the chatgpt.site. But then you can also connect your own custom domain, which is super, super easy. So what you want to do that it referred to earlier is you want to go see if your domain is actually available. So you can go in here to Vercel, you can go to domains, and you can either buy one from here. So for example, for Client Pack, I could say clientpack.com. That's obviously unavailable. What if I do like getclientpack.com? This one's available for $11.25, as you can see. And we could buy this straight here from Vercel. And then we could just say, okay, cool. This is the project that we have set up for Client Pack. Use this domain rather than using a different one, right? So that's how you would do it if you wanted to buy your own custom domain for your landing page, for your website, for your app, whatever it is. Okay, so that obviously worked super quick here. It pushed this to a GitHub account, to my GitHub account, and it called it Client Pack landing page. So I can click on this link. This is what the GitHub looks like. It has basically all of the files and folders that we need in order to host this site. And what this means is we can have version control here. So if later we update the color or we update some of the copy, we could push that back to GitHub. So now we have a working version, and we can go back and see different versions if we changed anything or anything that we added. And that helps us be able to protect our code base. So now you're going to go back into Vercel. You're going to click on Add New Project. And then all you have to do is you're going to import the Git repository. So right here, it's going to prompt you to connect your GitHub account if you haven't done that. So go ahead and connect the GitHub account. And then you can literally just click on, this is the GitHub account, or sorry, the GitHub repo. I can literally just click on import. And then I can deploy this. And all this is going to do is now it's just going to take this landing page and our admin site, and it's going to put it on our own URL that we can own, like I said. Okay, but there is an issue here, which sometimes happens with deployment. So I'm kind of glad this happened. I can show you what to do. So you can see it says 404 not found. I'm going to go to the dashboard. We're going to click on the actual URL that it gave us, and it says 404 not found. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot of this because Codex will know how to actually solve this. So I'm going to copy this screenshot. I'm going to paste it in here and say, okay, so I connected my GitHub account. I connected the GitHub repo that you just made, client pack landing page, to Vercel. And when I tried to deploy it, this is what happened. I'm not sure if because it tried to deploy this with Vite or whatever happened, but if you need more info from Vercel, let me know. But this is what we're currently seeing, and you need to fix this. And just like that, you guys can see it's still working, but it's already fixed the issue. I go back into my Vercel, I refreshed it, and you can see we now have this showing up as the preview. And when I click into the actual domain, we now have the actual site that we were looking at ready to go. So for the most part, our packaging has been done, even though the product isn't yet done. And I think it's really important to realize that you can do the whole like selling before you build idea to actually validate that what you're about to do, the time you're about to put in to this product is going to pay off. And then we even had Codex, without asking, go ahead and verify that all of that is working. So we are good on that front. And Fable is still cooking up over here. So I'm just going to keep letting it do its thing. And because we got the remote control on my phone, I'm actually going to grab some lunch, run down to the gym, and just keep checking in. And then whenever it's done, I'll come back and give you guys an update. Okay, so I have not looked at this at all yet. It says that it's done. It says version 1 POC has been finished, and we can go ahead and open it up. I'm prompting it right now to open it up in a different localhost for me, so it's spinning that up right now. But here's what got verified, not just built. So it said the full customer journey with real model calls, meaning once a customer comes in here and puts in information, it will send off that information to an AI model. Now, it probably chose an Anthropic one because this is Claude, but that's part of what's baked in here. And so essentially that's what a user is paying for when they subscribe to this on, a monthly subscription. We could have maybe done like a pay as you go billing, and you have a choice there as far as the model, the business model that you want to run. But what it chose to do here was you have a subscription, you probably get like 10 generations a week or something like that based on how much you're paying. And then we're technically eating that API cost. Now, as you start to scale that up, there's going to be different types of problems and other things to think through, but that's the way that it's currently set up. From there, it said the deck is actually good. I screenshotted every generated PDF and looked. 5 layout defects found and fixed, then reproven on a fresh generation. A geometry fit check script now guards all 10 slides. So one pack is going to cost about 16 to 20 cents. Every AI call logs tokens and dollars to a specific event or to a specific place in the admin panel. And that is what got checked. Now, obviously, this isn't a finished thing. This is V1. We still have to set up a few API keys. We have to get a couple of things sorted that are open items like Supabase, Vercel, Anthropic keys, things like that. But we have something now that we can sort of look at and give some feedback on. So the demo is live. We can go ahead and open up our local host. So I'll click on this, and that just opened up this page right here, which is a local host. So no one else could actually touch this. But this is kind of the UI that we're looking at. This is Client Pack. We have projects. We have brand and case studies. So this is where you as a user could come in here and say, here's my agency name, here's my color, here's what we specialize in, here's our logo. And then we can also put in some case studies. So I think the idea here is that every deck is generated in your style. So your logos, your colors, and your notes. And then if there's a relevant case study, you can put them in here so that they can be automatically added into your decks and into your, potential sales material. We also have billing here. So right now we're on a free plan, 0 out of 1 decks. The free account covers 1 deck in total. And then we can go ahead and switch over to a paid membership. So it's a super clean, super easy to use UI. Now let's take a look at here. We have 2 client decks. One of them is a draft and one of them is ready. Let's just go ahead and click on the ready one real quick. So Radiant Skin Med Spa. If I open this up, it basically opens it up in a little project portal right here. We can see the deck is ready. We can see the pain points, the investment, the value per month. We can view deck, edit findings, regenerate. And here are the transcripts that we put in to this specific project. So we put in a discovery call on August 2nd and a follow-up call just as a text on August 6th. So it looks like when you add a transcript, you can do text files, doc files, VTT, as many files as you want, or you can paste the transcript in right there. So that's pretty cool. We also have project details, so I can open this up. We have client name, what they do, anything else we should know. Okay, perfect. Now let's go ahead and actually view this deck. Okay, so it opens it up right here, and we have 10 slides that we can flip through here, or we could also download this as a PDF. But here's what we have. So this is our agency name. This is where our logo would appear. And you'll notice that these colors are basically being presented because this is the color that we entered for our agency. So Radiant Skin Med Spa, that's the client. Fill the chairs you already booked without raising ad spend. So prepared by us. Here's the date. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So it starts off with where you are today. 5 appointment slots a week, go empty, blah, blah, blah. Inquiries you already paid for, wait days for a reply. And then Botox clients need a touch up at 12 weeks and nobody asks them. So what this did is it pulled specific quotes where the client themselves told us the pain. And this makes it a little bit stronger because like, oh, wow, I did say that. This is definitely something that we have, a pain point in our business. And there's 3 of them backed by real quotes from our discovery call. So that already gives them a sense of like, okay, I trust these guys a little more. They're clearly not just like putting me through some AI generated like prompt. They're pulling specific things that I said in our call together. We keep going here, consistent with our branding, consistent with our color scheme. This is the real constraint. They came in basically saying, hey, we need more leads. But what actually is true is you need 30 minutes after an inquiry and 12 weeks after a visit. So this idea of the reframe is positioning us as the consultants, the long-term thought partners who are really thinking about the business and not just saying, okay, oh, you want this, here you go. We're not just taking orders. We are actually helping think about the business. So here is the plan that we talked about. We have 3 steps right there. We move on to the actual metrics that we're trying to move. So you can see 5 per week goes down to 2 per week. The first reply, about 2 days, goes to about under 5 minutes. And then the repeatable injectable bookings per month is about 4 per month. And we want to get that up to 10 per month. So we're really showing them what it will look like when you actually work with us, Meridian Automation. Here we get into the math. So this is basically what you invest and this is what it returns in year 1. Obviously, this has to be backed by real data, real things that they said, real numbers of what the automation or what the solution is worth to them, is worth to their business and value. But this, once again, is just going through the framework of we have a system as consultants. This is how we work with businesses. This is how we show value. This is how we show the ROI. And having this sort of consistent way that you're presenting these decks is going to help you come across more professional. It's like you have your own framework. Now, here we can see we sort of dig into the actual processes. So here's the manual process, and here's what it will look like after launch, as well as a little bit of a visualization. Now, this could be reworked a little bit. I think this could be better. But for a first step, this helps us be able to really, really visually explain, okay, this is the trigger. This is a step that happens. Here's maybe where a decision happens. Here's where AI is involved. Here's where your team is still involved. So it, once again, starts to create a better picture in the client's mind. We move on to why us. So this is where you can show specific examples from your case studies and you can edit the information here. We have the actual scope, what's included, what's not included, and then we have the investment and next steps. So once again, this is not like the formal contract that they would be sending to the client to get them to sign. This is more so like, hey, we had 3 calls. Here's what we learned. Here's what we want it to look like when we work together. Are you guys in or not? So that is what the PDF actually comes back as. Now, once again, I could go back to this project. I could edit the findings if I wanted. There's a lot of different things here. We can change the severity. We can move it up or down as a different pain point. And we can really customize this as much as we want. As you can see, there's so much here that we can do because obviously we want to make sure that this is legit, right? So we have all of these metrics we can play with, and then we can hit regenerate deck and we get a new deck. I'm curious what this one looks like in draft mode. So I think the only reason this is a draft is because there's not yet a transcript in there. And once we had a transcript in there, we would go ahead and hit generate deck or analyze deck, and then we would get something back. So for a first POC, with the main functionality here being taking transcripts and turning it into decks that you can play with and iterate on with your own branding and case studies, I'm pretty happy with this. Like, this is V1. This is the first time I opened this up. And now what we have to do is make sure that everything is working because there's probably some bugs in here that we haven't yet found. But we also haven't gone through like the onboarding phase. So if I go ahead and click log out in the bottom left, this doesn't actually do anything. Maybe it's because it's blocked, but I can't hit sign out. Like, yeah, nothing's happening when I hit sign out. So I think the next step that we have to go through is kind of like stress testing this piece, but then also getting that onboarding flow set up. So I'm going to go back into Claude and we're going to just chat a little more. But one thing I want you guys to pay attention to is all of that. We could have done that all with Fable 5, right? And I'm not sure how much better it would have been, but look at this. We only used 1% of Fable since we last checked in. So all of this basically coding and decision-making, Fable was routing to different agents, and we weren't actually using Fable's real compute to build out that code. So that's really cool, and it's a great trick to use when you're sort of like managing these agents. So I'm going to go ahead and once again do a session handoff because we are kind of hitting that context rot territory, and I just want to clear the context to throw off another task while still keeping us like on the right path. Okay, so I have this handoff message. I'm going to clear this chat, paste that back in, and I'm just going to say, here is what just happened. don't do anything yet until I tell you what to do. So I just wanted to read that and get familiarized with what's going on. Now, I'm also going to open up Codex, and I'm going to open up a new chat inside of our AI SaaS sprint project and paste in that same session handoff. Because what I want to do here is I really like to use Codex as my verifier. When it comes to an actual app and opening it up and playing with it, Codex is much better with computer use. And what I want it to do is I want it to basically come in here, spin up a new project, generate transcripts, paste in different types of documents, paste in different things. And I want Codex to try and break this app. I want it to find bugs and find holes in it so that we can go back and fix them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So you can see inside of Codex, it says, okay, cool. Here's the context. It's running here, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Codex, here's what I want you to do. This is V1 of client pack. You can see it open in a local host. What I want you to do is I want you to use your computer use, and I want you to click every button. I want you to play around with this. I want you to try to break this. I want you to try to find bugs. Your goal is to tell us what needs to be fixed so that we can fix this before any customers actually come in here. I want you to try to upload different formats. I want you to try to generate generate decks. I want you to play with different buttons and find where there might be either like a visual bug or an actual technical bug, a limitation in the functionality of this app. And once you've tested this, through a bunch of different workflows and tried to find edge cases, and you either have found a bunch or you found none, once you feel confident that you've tried enough stuff to confidently say that this version is ready, then go ahead and let me know what we need to change. Okay, cool. So this is going to open up the browser. It's going to start to play around with it a little bit. And that's great because it's not going to change anything. So what that means is over here back in Claude, I can have it start building out some other stuff without interfering with what Codex is doing. So I'm going to come in here and say, okay, cool. So right now I have Codex testing everything. The version you just gave me in the local host, it's going to start testing things, generating new decks, playing around with different buttons and seeing if there's any bugs. I will come back to you with what Codex finds. Now, what I'm curious about from you is, once again, you're Fable 5, you're the orchestrator, you don't execute anything. You're basically just orchestrating a team of sub-agents, Opus workers, Sonnet workers to help you build this out. And you are the project manager who's responsible for everything. I'm now curious about the onboarding flow. We have to figure out, what does it look like from the beginning into the actual dashboard when a client comes in and they pay, they subscribe, and then they onboard, they get logged in. Where do we hold all that data in the back end? And what does that journey look like for the customer? Because it has to be quick. It has to be easy and seamless. Otherwise, we're going to lose paying customers in that onboarding process. So that's what I want to build out here. And I want to make sure that I'm giving you everything you need as far as like Supabase integration, Stripe, whatever you need here. Let's start building out that whole onboarding and the payment processing flow. Okay. Cool. So we have these two other prompts coming back. This one will probably take a little bit, of testing. And then this one over here will probably be going back and forth a little bit to answer some questions and to set up some things like Supabase and whatnot. But real quick in Codex, if I see over here the browser, we can actually see it trying things out. So right here, you can see it tried to enter an accent color, like it tried to type in red, but we obviously need to use a hex color like 2E75, blah, blah, blah. So now put that in. And so this mouse right here is Codex. This is Codex using a browser. You can see it clicking around. You can see it moving around. And this is what's so cool is it's just going to test a bunch of stuff. And then it will come back and say, okay, I tested these 1,000 possibilities, which would have taken you like 12 hours to do so. So using Codex here as a computer use verifier, really, really fun and also really, really helpful. Oh, I just realized that these lights weren't turned on. There we go. Now we got the good vibe in here as there's a bunch of clouds coming over Lake Michigan. Hopefully it doesn't start storming on us. And while it's running through this, let me show you something real quick, which is a / by the way, which means you can ask Claude a question without interrupting this main kind of like chain of thought. So what I'm curious about is the tech stack that it wants to use, because I remember it mentioned Supabase and Stripe, but I just want to make sure before I go off and like create a new table or create a new account. So while you're thinking about this, I'm curious the tech stack that we're going to use on the back end for authentication. I'm not sure if you were planning on using Supabase or Stripe or what all are the things that you need, but if you could let me know what we were planning so that I can go real quick and spin up the accounts and get the API keys ready and stuff like that. So as you can see, it's a little side chat, right? It's super, super cool feature when you have a little one-off question like this and you don't want to interrupt it. And as you can see down here, the answer we got is that Supabase is going to handle the authentication. So it's basically going to store our users. It'll be our customer database. And then Stripe is going to be just the payment. So it's never going to touch auth. So that's super clear. Now we know what accounts we'll have to go set up. You can see that we're going to have to get some API keys and things like that from Supabase. And then from Stripe, we'll have to get a secret key, probably a webhook secret as well. It's already got our Anthropic API key. It's already got this other stuff. So cool. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that chat. And now you can see the main session has some questions for us. So what does a new user get before paying? This decides whether checkout comes before or after the first deck. I would say, yeah, free deck, but it's watermarked. That's perfect. Final price point. Config currently says $39 a month and $390 for the year. Research band is saying 29 to 49. Let's just go ahead and go with the recommendation since it did go ahead and do a bunch of research. So I'll click on the recommendation and now we will see what comes next. So the journey that it wants is there's a pricing page and you can sign up and then you check out and then there's a 3-step onboarding which gets you into your first deck. So we're basically going to follow this flow, keep it super simple. We obviously have to make sure that that works and also that if they sign up for a subscription, it's actually going to charge them recurring. And if they want to cancel it, they're able to cancel it. So while this is all spinning, let's go ahead and jump over to Supabase and to Stripe. So if you've never created a Supabase account, it's super easy. It starts off free as well. So just go to supabase.com and go ahead and sign in or sign up for Supabase. So you can see here with Up at AI, I am just on a free plan here and I'm just going to go ahead and start a new project. And we are just going to call this our, what's our product called? Our client pack. Okay. Client pack. We have to set up a strong database password. So just make sure whatever you set this as, you remember it. We want to enable the data API, automatically expose new tables, and just all of that I'm keeping as default. And we're going to go ahead and create this new project. And then of course, you're going to go over to Stripe and you're going to want to create an account over here if you don't already have one set up. And I know it might seem a little intimidating. There's all this new software. There's all these new things to keep track of. Just don't worry. Claude is going to tell you exactly what it needs and how we get it. So let's take a look at what it says. So we have some decisions locked. We have 2 Opus workers that are now building each in an isolated work tree so that the Codex testing stays untouched. So that's amazing. It's building out the funnel and the onboarding wizard, and it's building out sort of the watermark, which is going to actually go on those free decks. So now what's going to happen is whenever we're ready, we have to paste values into the .env.local, and that's going to be Supabase stuff. So create a free project at supabase.com. Then go to project settings, go to API, grab the project URL, the anon key, the service role secret, and we're gonna have to upload all of those to the .env. And then same thing for Stripe. And when it says to put them in the .env, as you guys know, we'll go up here, we'll go to files, we will click on our, I don't know where it put the .env. Okay, so I'm actually not seeing a .env, so we're probably gonna have to make one. I'm just gonna tell it, create us the .env file, and then it will hopefully drop it in there. But in the meantime, let's go back over to Supabase and go to our project settings to get these 3 things. Okay, so here I am in Supabase. I'll zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go down here to project settings, and we have to go to, I think, API keys right here. And now back in Claude, I can see we have our .env.local, and we have our Supabase instructions here. So the next public Supabase URL is our project URL. So I'm going to delete this, and we're just going to go back into Supabase and grab our project URL. Now this is where it can get a little confusing though, because we have API keys, we have service role secrets. I'm not seeing the project URL. There it is, API URL. I believe this is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, go back into Claude and paste that in there. And we'll obviously make sure and ask Claude if all this is correct later. Then we need our anon key, right? So back into Supabase, I'm going to go back to project settings. We're going to go to API keys. We can see if I click over here, we have an anon public. So I'll click on that. I hope I'm saying that right. Some of you guys are probably face palming right now, but there is that key. And then we need to get the service role secret, which is down here. I'm going to click reveal, copy that. And then we're going to put that in right there, hit save. Now I'm going to say, okay, cool. For Supabase, I put in those 3 things. Go ahead and see if those are correct. And while you're doing that, I will get the Stripe stuff. So for Stripe, we need to get 2 keys. So I'm going to go into Stripe and I'm going to go down here to developers. I believe that's probably where it is. And we will go to our API keys down here. You can see we have a secret key as well as a publishable key. So I believe these are the 2 things that it needs. I'm going to copy each of these and put them into our file here. So now the Supabase stuff is correct. Go ahead and check if the Stripe keys work as well. Okay, cool. So this is something important I wanted to call out. It wants us to do this in a sandbox before we switch over, which I think is very, very smart. So in the Stripe dashboard, you're going to go to a new sandbox. So up here, you'll click on, switch to sandbox. You can either create a new one or if you already have one. And then when you go to your API keys in the sandbox, you can actually just play with this. And you can see here, you are testing in a sandbox, no real transactions will be processed. So I'm going to now put in the sandbox keys into Claude, and then we'll have it start to test out things and start making subscriptions and things like that. Okay, I switched those out with our test keys. So we do all of our testing here in a sandbox. And then as soon as once everything's confirmed, we have the full end-to-end pipeline working, we would just switch out the test key with the real key and we'd be good to go, because there'd be all the back-end sort of like processes and scripts already baked into the app itself. So hopefully you guys are kind of realizing the unlock here. It's that we don't really have to know all of the plugins. We just have to be able to ask the right questions, as if we were talking to a developer who has built tons of different SaaS products and tools and APIs even. And of course, we're able to have it check its own work. As you can see, Soul over here in Codex is still chugging away. It's been over 20 minutes and it is still testing the heck out of our app. Now look how cool this is. It told us that we needed to put a Supabase table inside our project, because right now in Supabase, if I go over here to our table editor, we have no tables. And we actually have to create one. But what's really cool is read this. It said, I just recopied the SQL editor command to your clipboard. So that basically means if I go into Supabase and I go to the SQL editor and I just paste, this is the actual query that it wrote up that's going to create the right table. So now I just hit run. It's going to down here say success, no rows returned. And now if I go to tables, there we go. We have these, what are these? 8 tables that it just created, and I didn't have to do any of that. And now it's going to have our subscriptions, our transcripts, our usage events, our decks, case studies. It has all of these set up correctly. And all of this information is now known to Claude so that it can actually write up all the scripts on the back end. So that worked amazing. We now have those 8 tables in our Supabase. Let's keep on building towards this full process. Now, there is one more thing that is really important about this specific app that we're building. Yes, we are testing functionally and technically if everything's working. Are the connections right? Are the buttons right? Blah, blah, blah. But what about the actual value of this specific app? The value in this specific app is that we're getting legitimately high quality analysis. You know, when I come into the deck, not just like, hey, does this look good? Hey, is everything rendering right? But is this stuff accurate? Like, is this information real? And so part of that is on us, the way that the AI on the back end is actually analyzing the transcripts and stuff, right? Like that's part on us. And it goes back to what I was saying about you can outsource your thinking and the data collection, but you can't outsource the understanding. And so like if this is just pulling generic information from, you know, Opus 5 or whatever model on the back end is powering it, that's not going to be good enough. So what I would do here is I would use something like a grill me skill. And I would say, hey, grill me on everything that I know about communicating to clients, you know, positioning, the value, the ROI, the investment, the actual realistic results of these AI solutions. And then I would say, okay, now that you just interviewed me for like, 20 minutes or whatever, take all of that data and put it into the prompt of the AI processing on the back end. Because ultimately, the IP here, the real moat, the real important actual like moat here is that the prompt that powers this on the back end is what matters, because anyone could come in here and rebuild this entire thing in one day. That can't be the moat. The moat for me in this business, in this, potential AI SaaS, is that I have all of my knowledge, all of my experience, all the landmines that I've stepped on baked into the prompt behind this regenerate button or behind the analyze button. And as we build out more little tools in here that help agency owners run their agency better, the moat is all of the data and experiences that I put into it. Not just, hey, can Stripe work with our app and does Supabase work with our app and does it look pretty? Nobody's going to stick around for that. They stick around for the actual IP that they don't have access to. The reason I wanted to call that out here is because I'm not going to sit here in this video and just brain dump for hours and optimize this prompt for hours. This was more about showing you how much you can get done in one day. And more importantly, how much there's still left to do once you're done. Every time you have a new customer and you get the feedback, you're going to have to fix things. Customers are going to find bugs. Customers are going to have feature requests. You're going to want to iterate. So I know the title of this video kind of made it seem like I'm building this SaaS in one day, but the truth is, in the AI space, there's like no such thing as a finished product. My iOS, I change every day. All of my skills, I change every day. All of my automations are changing constantly based on new things that we learn. It's never done when you think it's done. Okay, speaking of done, Codex is done. So let's take a look and see what it said. So it basically came back with, this is not ready for customers yet. So this is why I like to use a different AI model to help me find things that clearly Fable 5 and all these other workers, they missed. So there are two main launch blockers. We have the review and sign off are not enforced. So it generated a real deck while an inferred baseline was still unconfirmed. I also confirmed that regenerate deck remains enabled with 0 pains, 0 solutions, negative interest, a negative investment, empty required findings. So we need to fix a couple things there. Then we also have unknown ROI produces a client-facing 0x slide, which obviously cannot happen. So these are sort of like the two blockers. We also have high priority bugs and medium priority bugs. And then we have basically all these other things that it confirmed are working well. So now we have a decision to make. Do we want to take this report and give it back to Fable 5 to help us build this stuff out? Or do we want to just say, okay, Codex, since you found all this stuff, you build it out. You make all those fixes. And because so far we've mainly been using Claude for the building and also Claude's working on building some other stuff, let's just try doing this in Codex. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do a /goal. And I'm going to say, okay, cool. So now you're in charge of managing all of these things that you found. You're in charge of fixing the blockers and fixing the high priority bugs. For now, let's just leave the medium priority bugs alone. But what I want you to do is you need to utilize a team of agents. I want you to be the orchestrator. You're the project manager. I want you to utilize sub agents. I want you to utilize agent teams, whatever you need to do to delegate the work around so that each agent is specifically focused on one very specific thing so that it can do that job really well. I also want you to be wary that no agents are overwriting each other's work. I also want you to know that right now in a different session, we have Claude Code building out sort of like the onboarding flow and the payment flow. So don't mess with any of that. Only attack the actual blockers and bugs that you found in our app. Ultimately, you are responsible for this. If it doesn't go well, I will blame you. So you have to verify what the sub-agents that you are orchestrating, you have to verify that what they're doing is correct. So your goal is to fix all the blockers and fix the high priority bugs and verify that they are truly fixed. You can use computer use, whatever you need to do. And then once you're confident that all of that has been fixed and it's customer ready, at least in your scope of work, then report back to me. Okay, cool. I'm going to shoot that off. It just got really dark out of nowhere. Let's see if I turn on that light, if that helps at all. Oof. That might be a little too, it's not too bad. But yeah, it just started raining. It got super cloudy. So I apologize the lighting. Hopefully we don't hear any thunder and stuff or see some lightning. But let's just keep building this out. Codex is now going to be working on all those bugs it found. Claude is working on the actual connection with Supabase, hopefully the connection with Stripe, plugging everything up, setting up all the plumbing, working on that onboarding flow. This is coming along really nicely. And it is currently 1:39 p.m. Keep in mind, I also went off. I had lunch. I went down to the gym. But I've just been constantly working on this thing throughout the day, and it's been a lot of fun. Let's just do a quick recap. We found the pain, right? We found the pain because I was able to analyze, what was it, like over 60,000 comments or threads from both me, my community, my YouTube channel, but also from just Reddit, X, general problems that people in this space are having. We then made a promise. We have one thing that the current tool is doing really well, and hopefully it's going to do it better than other tools out there. We have the actual product that's being built. We have all the plumbing going into it, so it's connecting to different AI models, different APIs. We have it set up on our, Vercel, everything like that. We have the packaging figured out. We have the logo, the name. We have the actual, the waiting list application right here that people can learn a little bit about it, get on the wait list, and then we can see the admin panel to see who's on the wait list. As you can see right here, obviously no one else signed up, but we can see who has been signing up for our app. And then we're kind of utilizing proof throughout all of this. We're having all of this do the verification. We're having everybody check with computer use, with running API calls. We're having all of this be proven and double checked and triple checked before we ever go try to send it off to people. So the 6 Ps are all coming along really well, but obviously we're not done yet. We've got a lot of stuff going on. So I will just kind of monitor this and I will check in with you guys when there's something else interesting that's happening. Okay, so here's where we're at now. When we had Codex go through and make all the changes, it was able to fix everything. Sorry if you guys hear thunder or see lightning. It currently is storming. And then it verified everything. It ran 85 checks and said, okay, cool, this stuff is now good to go. And back in Claude, what happened was I said, hey, here are our Supabase tables. And it basically tested it out now. It did a test user, it populated the table, and it ran the full customer journey as a smoke test. We can see that it signed in, it did a brand kit and case study, it created a project, it analyzed it for 4 cents, generated the deck for 9 cents, did a watermark, did a Stripe checkout, webhook, watermark was removed, and all of that happened with 13 cents for a full deck for a new user. So it found all this stuff, and now we're going to see what's going on. It was building out some more things. And then I basically said, okay, cool. So Codex is done and it fixed all those things that it needed to fix. Where are we at? And so now I'm basically looking at how I can test the onboarding flow myself. So I'm basically going to open up this new local host and open up on my other monitor. Here it is right here. And this is what the actual page looks like. So for AI agencies and automation builders, turn every discovery call into a client-ready proposal. We obviously have some information here. We didn't even design this page, if you guys remember. The only thing that we had so far designed was the Waitlist page, which was this one. So they have similar vibes because they have, the same sort of design system. But what I did notice here is that Client Pack did not use the logo. The Claude version didn't use the logo of the actual Client Pack website. So we're gonna have to fix that, but that's a small thing. So now if I go ahead and say, let's just do start free. So I'm gonna create an account real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and hit sign up. Okay, so it actually needs us to have an 8-character password. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll do 6, 7, 8 and 6, 7, 8. Let's see if that's strong enough. Okay, that's not a valid email. So I guess it has to be a real email. So that's cool. I didn't have it do any of this verification, right? But it's already baked in there. So that's pretty cool. Let me try this now with a real email. Now I put in an actual Gmail that exists. I'm gonna go ahead and sign up. Let's see what happens. Boom. Okay, so we have to go confirm our account and then log in. So I'm gonna go try to do that. So this is pretty cool. We get an email from Supabase auth. So remember, I didn't have to set up any of this as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and click confirm email address. It takes us back to the waitlist page. We might wanna fix that. That's a little weird to go back to the waitlist page, but either way, let's try to log in again now. All right, so now that we have logged in, cool. So now we are in here. We can see this is what the setup looks like. 3 things and you are running. We have a brand kit. So we can put in our name. Let's just put in Up at AI. Let's go ahead and choose a different color. Let's make it more of like a sort of a light blue like this. Perfect. And let's go ahead and upload a logo. Cool. So we got that filled out. Let's go ahead and save and continue. Case study. I'm just going to put in some really quick example one. I'm actually just going to do these placeholders. So, okay. So this is obviously where you'd spend some time and you'd add some of your own case studies, but we're going to click on add and continue. And now our very first client. So let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to go back into Codex real quick and say, so I'm currently going through the onboarding flow just to test it out for this app. Can you give me an example client name, what they do, and call transcript for me to paste in here just to see how this actually works? Okay, so we have this information in there. I'm going to click on create project. And now this is kind of the experience that we are already pretty familiar with. We have the transcript. We can analyze the call. I'll go ahead and click that. And we actually see sort of like a progress bar of this currently being analyzed by AI. Man, the lighting in this video has just been all over the place. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is cool. Now that it's analyzed the transcript, what it did is it basically put in here all the pain points and the constraints and all of this information. And before it actually wastes our tokens, wastes the user's subscription, building out the deck, because that's a little bit more token intensive, it wants you to review and confirm all of this stuff, which is really important. So we would now read through the pain points. We would say how severe they were. We could see if the exact quotes actually match up. And then we could come in here and just make sure that this information is correct based on the call. And if, maybe they really, really prioritized a certain element or they really stressed something in the call, you could make sure that the deck is going to hit on that. So now you'll click on I check the pains, metrics, targets, and investment. These are ready to show the client. I'll go ahead and hit generate deck. And once again, this will probably take a few minutes. The analyzing didn't take as long. The transcript wasn't super long, but this one will probably take a little bit longer. And just for a quick time check for you guys, it's currently almost 3 p.m. If I go here, 2:52. So we're chugging along, making a lot of good progress in, just about 6 hours of today's work. Awesome. So the deck is ready. We have 3 pains, $12,000 investment, 11,932 value per month. I'm not exactly sure what that's coming from exactly. It feels like, I guess, they're paying $12,000 and each month they're getting this much value back. So they basically are making their money back in 1 month. But let's go ahead and click on view deck. I'm not going to read all of this, but you see we have our logo, we have our color scheme. This is the color I put in there. And we're going to just kind of flip through real quick. It's all matches the color scheme once again. It's all very consistent. Every single time we get 10 slides and we have this repeatable flow. So as you're kind of presenting this to the client, you're going to get really, really good at being able to communicate this very well. We have our actual little visual diagram right here as well. We have some proof. We have the scope. And then we have our final sort of call to action. So now what you notice here is this says free deck carries a client pack watermark, which is in the bottom right. So right there, you can see made with client pack. If you want to remove this, you can upgrade. So let's go ahead and click upgrade, see what this looks like. We used up our 1 free plan, and now we can get on a plan for $39 a month. So let's click on that. And this is going to open up a checkout. Perfect. This goes straight to a sandbox, as you can see, a Stripe sandbox. We have $39 per month, and then we're able to go ahead and pay through here. So because we're in Sandbox, we basically paid with a fake card. As you can see, there's like a whole list on Stripe Docs of fake cards you use when you're in Sandbox mode. And then we actually are now on a subscription. So we have an active plan. It renews September 9th. And let's see, we have 1 out of 25 decks have been created. If we wanted to actually cancel, we would go to manage billing. This would take us to a Stripe portal right here where we could go ahead and update our information. So this is all Stripe, super easy. Stripe's handling that. We know how to set that up. People know how to cancel subscriptions. It's super easy. Cool. So let's just real quick go back to our actual project. Let's click on our deck and make sure that now the watermark has been removed. Cool. So now the watermark is removed because we are on a paid plan. Awesome. So all of that, guys, was so easy to set up. But now there's some other things to be thinking about. Let's just say that this is kind of V1 of our product, of our app, and V1 is done. There's a lot of other things that we want to think about too still. Real quick, I wanted to show you guys what this actually looks like inside of our database. So this is Supabase. We have decks, so it's going to store the data on all of the decks that have been created. You can see we have information like the time that it was created. We have information like the actual content of the decks. We have our case studies. So when people are putting them in, we're assigning that to a user ID. So that's kind of like the unique key. I'm curious though, brand profiles. Okay, cool. So this is when people sign up and create an account, they now have a profile. And this is where we can see stuff like their colors, their logos, what they do. And this is where we basically associate these IDs with all of the other things. So like this user ID is associated with me. And so in the case studies, it's there too. In the decks, it's going to be there too. As you can see, that's kind of sort of like the primary key that relates all of these tables together. So we can also see our subscriptions, and that's really cool because once again, we didn't set any of this up. It basically linked all these tables together. Now, I'm also curious in the Stripe side, because we're in our test sandbox, I'm wondering if we come into our transactions here, this is what we see. We see 2 subscriptions, right? I can see $39 succeeded, and we have a subscription creation. Now, if I click into the subscription creation, we should see that this hopefully is going to auto renew, because in Stripe, there is a difference between a subscription and sort of like a one-time product, right? So here is one of our products. We have Client Pack. This is either $39 per month or $390 per year. And it says that there are 2 active subscriptions on this product. So that's how we know that this is going to actually bill them again in a month, right? So here's the 2 active subscriptions. These are the ones that we just signed up with. Awesome. So just think about that, guys. All we had to do was come in here and give Claude Code or Codex, both of them, API keys for Stripe and API keys for Supabase, and it set up everything. It did all of that plumbing on the back end so that we as humans just get to focus on these things, right? The pain and the promise, the experience of the product, the packaging, and then the proof, which is the boring stuff, the verification, AI can handle. The plumbing, the boring stuff, the technical stuff, AI can handle once again. And you guys saw me do all of this. Every single prompt that I shot off to these 2 coding agents so far today, you've seen me, you've heard me do it. And I'm 100% confident that all of you guys could either replicate the prompts that I sent off, or you could just also instruct the agents yourself in the same way that I did it. But I did mention that there were some other things to be thinking about, right? I want to talk about some security stuff. So I'm going to do this in Codex because I trust Codex's verification and security just a little bit more. It feels a little bit more like it's able to just obey what I'm saying and it stays on the path, whereas Claude can get a little bit creative sometimes. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to clear this session. I'm going to go ahead and clear this session. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in this prompt, which I'm going to show you guys. So I'm not going to read this entire thing out, but this is a prompt that I like to use for security reviewing, right? And you can see that this is going to say to audit against the OWASP 5.0. And that is actually a GitHub repo that I'm going to show you guys right here, which has a bunch of security stuff because we've now set up authentication. We've set up some payment processing, and we want to have more confidence that someone couldn't basically like hack the app and find the other information from our clients, like find their credit card information, find stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is copy the link to this GitHub repo, and I'm also going to basically just put this in to this prompt so it understands what's going on here. And then at the front, I'm basically just going to add. So we've basically just finished the V1 of our Client Pack app, as you've been helping me kind of work on, and you can see because you're in the folder. Now that we're getting ready to start having customers come on and get authenticated and create accounts and start, actually using the product, we want to do some security checks. So here's what I want your help with. And I will just kind of like slowly scroll through this prompt so that if you want to screenshot it and copy it, you can feel free to, as you see right there. Okay, so now I'm going to shoot this off. And this is kind of the next step that we're working on, is just trying to make sure that we're locking things down a little bit as well. And then while this is happening over here, I'm going to go back over to Claude and I'm going to tell it what's going on. So, hey, by the way, I currently have Codex helping us figure out some security stuff, just making sure that we have everything locked up. People can't, throttle it and take advantage of us, prompt inject, steal things. I don't want to leak data, stuff like that. So it's going through that. I went through and tested the whole flow. I signed up for an account, I paid, I did all that, and it worked great. So good job. But now what I want to start thinking about is we're starting to get ready to put this out there into the world and to actually invite people to sign up and start testing it out and giving us feedback. So what's your plan? How do we actually think about pushing this to GitHub? How do we think about deploying this? How do we think about managing users at scale when more people start to come in? So let's say for now, the first milestone we want to hit is 50 paying users. How do we get there and how do we support that? What does that look like? Now, there is going to be a big difference as we start to scale from 50 paying users to 500, then from 500 to 5,000. At each of those milestones, there's going to be different things you need to think about. And so I'm not going to dive into a lot of that technical auto scaling and all this kind of stuff right now. But let's first just look at getting our first, 50 paying users and making sure that we have an actual action plan to get all of this out there in the world in the right way. So let's take a look at what it said. It said, obviously, hey, good timing on the security pass, but phase 1, this week, we're going to do GitHub and staging deploy. So the sprint repo is already Git with a clean history. And before anything leaves the machine, we have to run a scan over everything to make sure nothing got committed, have a private repo out there in our GitHub account, and then Vercel will deploy straight from GitHub on every push. So that will be perfect. Phase 2 will be the production cutover. So everything that we've done up there is going to be just test keys, test sandbox stripe, all that. And once we're out there, then we can go ahead and switch everything. So we will get Stripe into live mode. We will turn on the Supabase email confirmation, and we will terms and privacy pages. That's a good idea. We will draft those out and make sure that people are kind of accepting those as well. And then we have error tracking. Basically, the idea that everything is being logged. All of the actions are being logged. We have alerts when there are errors, because that's the other thing about, the whole debate about like build versus buy. Yes, there's a lot of things that you could now build, but when you build, you kind of have to realize that that's now a ball that you have to keep juggling forever. Like in some form, you are responsible or someone on your team is responsible for that. So same thing when it comes to like a SaaS product. The idea is, I can build something once and sell it forever. Lots of people buy it, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of things that you have to keep doing when it comes to maintenance. So starting to think about how you set up error tracking, notifications, things like that, right? Then phase 3 is first 50 paying users. The infra answer is boring, which is good. 50 users is nothing for the stack, which is great. Supabase Pro, $25 a month for backups. Vercel Pro, $20 a month. Worst case inference at full cap is $3 per user per month against $39 that they're paying. So that's good margins. But then it's starting to think about the operating loop. So inviting in batches, not all at once, having a feedback channel, having support, customer support is something that you have to deal with. Billing issues are going to come up. People might get locked out. What if they forgot their password? How do we help them automatically be able to reset that? Like things like that are other things that we need to bake in the functionality of this app. It wants us to watch 3 numbers weekly, signups, first deck generated, so activation, and then first deck into their paid conversion. And then just kind of watching the price and seeing how we might need to affect it. So from a technical perspective, nothing here surprises me. Nothing here is too out of the ordinary, but I'm glad that we had Cloud Code basically validate that GitHub is kind of where the code base is going to be stored. That's where we'll have commits. That's where we'll have pull requests and things like that. And then Vercel is going to be where we actually go ahead and deploy that on our URL. And I already showed you guys earlier how easy that is to create your GitHub account, to create your Vercel account, sync them together, and then just say, hey, Codex, hey, Cloud Code, push these changes to GitHub, and then Vercel picks it up automatically, and it will just deploy super easily. You can buy a URL on Vercel. You could buy one on Namecheap, GoDaddy, Squarespace, Wix, wherever you want. If you already have an email domain or you already have a domain you want to use, you can easily switch that into Vercel as well. You just have to point the DNS records at it. Super simple. Claude can obviously walk you through that step by step. It's very, very easy. But really the last thing that I'm waiting for is for Codex to finish up here. It's running a 2-tenant test and it's testing things out. Look at this. It found something that failed. So it's going to be really interesting to see what sort of like conclusions Codex is able to make here, because this is being treated as a read-only security review. So it's probably going to come back and say, hey, I found major red flags. I'm glad that you did this security check before you push this off. Let me go ahead and fix all these things. So I will just go ahead and check in with you guys once this comes back. We're only at step 1 out of 6. So this might take a little bit, but I'll check in with you guys in a bit. Okay, so in a weird way, this is exactly what I wanted to see. Client Pack is not ready for customer onboarding yet. It found 4 high-severity release blockers, plus a critical configuration condition that must be ruled out before deployment. And let's just be honest, these are probably not things that I would have found myself if I wanted to like inspect the code base or whatever. I would have needed a talented human engineer to be able to look through this. But because we can now give Codex some of this extra subject matter expertise, and as we know, these models are getting a lot better at cybersecurity and things like that, I'm able to do this in a way where I feel more confident about it. So what I did is I read through all this. We can see what's blocked. We can see what's been found that we need to fix. And I'm basically just going to go have this fix all of these things for me. Now you can see it found like 10 things. It marked like only 4 of them as the high priority, but it still found a lot of things. So it also tells us though, there are things that passed our review, which is at least good to know that it didn't completely just like drop the ball on this. And then there are some things that we need to, as a human, we still need to verify, like switching the production mode on. Right now it's, demo mode equals false. The stripe keys, rotating the anthropic key, all these other things that we need to do. But for now, let's go ahead and just have it fix these things. So awesome. I'm glad you found these vulnerabilities so that before we push it into production and have actual customers start using it, we can fix these things. So what I want you to do is spin up a team of agents. I want you to once again play project manager. I want you to orchestrate each agent to do one specific task, and you are the verifier. You are there to make sure that they're doing everything correctly and that there is nothing that's still going to slip through the cracks. So you should basically not stop until you're 100% confident that all of these vulnerabilities that you found have been resolved. And just to make this even stronger, I'm going to use this as a /goal prompt because I want it to continuously iterate and verify and write tests and run tests until it's confident that all of these issues have been resolved. If there's anything that's being blocked by me as a human that you can't physically do yourself, then feel free to leave that till the end and then say, when you give me the final report, say, hey, by the way, you still need to do these things. But other than that, I want you to go fix those vulnerabilities that you found. Okay, so while it's doing this, we can still start pushing things to GitHub and start that whole process of switching things over, because that's really important, is that like you're going to be able to push things to GitHub and they'll auto deploy. And then you're going to make changes. You're going to work on changes for a week, maybe a few days, and then you're going to push to GitHub again. And that's a flow of basically updating the app, rolling out updates, rolling out, different versions. That's exactly how our apps that we have to update constantly, that's how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to Claude and we're going to start getting this set up in GitHub. All right, so I'm ready to start pushing this into GitHub. Now, once we deploy the code there, and then I sync that repo to Vercel, my understanding is that we're going to have to give Vercel the environment variables that it needs, like some of the API keys and things like that. So help me understand what we have to do there, and go ahead and create a private repo in my GitHub. I should be authenticated in, and just call it our client pack application. There was also one other thing I noticed, which was in the whole onboarding sequence. If you are on the main page where you sign up for an account, we didn't have the right client pack logo. So please go find the logo. It should be somewhere in our project, and update that website, because that obviously needs to be using our real logo. And so what's going to happen is we're going to have this push out as a different Vercel project. If I go back to Vercel real quick, this is going to be something different. So in our homepage, we have different projects for, different repos. And because we're building this out as a different repo, we're going to be creating a new project for it. Now, what you could do is you could have everything come off of one domain if you want to. You can have like the main domain with a bunch of different slash sort of like routes, and you can point to different places, obviously. But we're just going to be doing this as a separate one. If you wanted to make it all cohesive, you wanted to merge everything into one, you certainly could. But that's just the way that we're going to be doing this today. Now, if you're confused about what I said about this whole like Vercel environment variables thing, let me explain that real quick. So as we know, in this project, we have our files, right? So basically what happens is all of these files will get pushed to GitHub, which means I could, work on my laptop if I needed to. I could, work somewhere else. Someone else could be a collaborator. But what happens is .env files or anything that's listed inside of the .gitignore don't get pushed to GitHub. That's a security feature baked in because you don't want API keys to be out there on the web exposed, right? So what's going to happen is it's going to push everything to GitHub except for the .env API keys. So Stripe, Supabase, Anthropic, other things like that. And the problem with that is now, how is Vercel going to be able to actually hit those providers? If Vercel doesn't have those keys, it can't use Supabase, Stripe, Anthropic, whatever else we need. So what we're going to have to do inside of Vercel is we're going to have to set up some environment variables for this specific project. So just as an example, let's pretend this was our main production one. We would come over here to environment variables, and this is where we would add our API keys. So it's basically just the whole idea that we're adding environment variables, places that are secure and that won't transfer through the public internet anywhere. So the only way that people would get these environment variables is if they were able to sign into our Vercel account. So that's what I meant. I'll show you guys how to set that up in a bit. It's super easy. You basically just enter the key, you enter the value, and you can just put in as many API keys as you want. So the same way we add it to our .env file when we're here in Claude Code, we're just going to do it in Vercel as well. And if you've done things like deployed automations to modal or trigger.dev, it's a very similar thing. It happens the same way. Like n, it all happens like that. Okay, so it says the logo has been fixed. The GitHub is live. Let me just open this up real quick. And cool, we got our client pack application. We have, oh, that was Codex. Codex is still going ham on that security stuff. These are the variables that we're going to have to add inside of Vercel. We're going to have to do demo mode equals false. We're going to have to do Anthropic API key. We will rotate it, and then we will paste a new one into the Vercel. So it's using probably like Opus 5 or something on the back end. Then we will do, once again, our Supabase stuff. We'll move that into Vercel. We will do our Supabase service role secret, mark it as sensitive in Vercel. Okay, good to know. And then Stripe and admin emails. Cool. Two values can't be set after the first deploy because they depend on the URL Vercel assigns, which are next public site, the deployed URL, and the Stripe webhook secret. A new secret in the Stripe sandbox dashboard in developers, webhooks, add endpoint. The CLI secret we've been using, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the fastest path is to connect the repo in Vercel and tell me when the project exists. If you run Vercel login in a terminal, I can handle the environment variables, the two-step redeploy, and the PDF smoke test myself. That's awesome. So let's just go ahead and do that. Yeah, totally. Let's do the Vercel login so that you can handle all of that. And also, guys, just to show you again, I could switch back to Opus because we really don't need Fable to be doing this. But all of this work that we've done, we've only used 7% of our Fable limit. You know, this whole idea of having it just orchestrate and brainstorm with you is not going to eat so many Fable tokens or your entire weekly 5-hour and context window limit. If you're doing it like that, rather than just saying, hey, Fable, go build me an app, go build me a website, that's when it uses all of those tokens and becomes very expensive very quick. So cool. You can see right here, it opened up my authorization for Vercel. And I'm just going to go ahead and allow my Claude Code to use our Vercel CLI in order to set up the project, put in the environment variables, mark it as sensitive, do all the stuff that it needs to do. That just makes our life so much easier. So that is great. The moment it completes, I'll take over, link the repo as a Vercel project under the root directory sent to client pack, load all the environment variables, run the first deploy. Cool. Now, one thing to do in parallel, if you have a minute, is to rotate the Anthropic key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually I'll copy this URL. I will go into a browser, paste that in. So this is basically just the dashboard where we're able to use Anthropic API keys and things like that. So I'm basically just going to rotate the one that it gave us and then give Claude a new one, or I'll put it in the environment variables of a new one that it can actually use in production for this app. So you can see I'm just making a new one in here called client pack. I'm saying it expires never. I'm going to add this. And then now that I've copied that key, I can basically remove this old one, which is the one that it was using. I'm just going to go ahead and disable that. And I can paste the new one right here inside of the .env.local, hit save. And now Claude can actually push that into our Vercel environment variable. I also just changed that Anthropic key. I rotated it. So you have the new one inside of the .env.local. And by the way, in Codex, when you're seeing all these little different icons, these are different subagents that are working. So we have like this green one finished up, this yellow one is going, this red one is going, and you can click in just like you can in the Claude desktop app, and you can see the prompt that was shot over and you can see what they're doing. So if you're confused by what those were, that's what it was. You can see this little icon basically means that it's using the browser, I believe. So if I click into here, you can see that it's running the browser. If I go over here, oh, sorry, right there. Client pack, it's once again doing the same thing where it's navigating around and making sure that everything's good. So it's really interesting. If you actually just like watch Codex or Claude as they're building out and as they're doing things, you'll learn a lot about how they work under the hood, just because they'll visually sort of tell you exactly what they're doing. And you get a lot of visibility. Cool. So as you can see, because we authenticated in, it set up this project for us. So in Vercel, it created this one, clientpack.vercel.app. We'll obviously connect a real domain to that, but that's what it got for us at the moment. You can see that this is the only one that is not yet connected to a Git repository. So that's something that we will, of course, set up in just a sec here. But that's just showing you that Cloud Code is now interacting with our Vercel, which makes things much easier for us. And it's checking on some other things now. Okay, it's now 4:14. So what is that? It's been over 7 hours now, just barely over 7 hours of when we started this build, and we're in a good spot. So what happened here is we have everything pushed now to Vercel. If I go over here, you can see that we have the client pack. It's not yet connected to a GitHub repository, but we do have this running. So if I click on clientpack.vercel.app, we have the actual sort of like the real landing page. We have the real logo has been updated. And we also, just to remind you guys, this is separated from our actual like waiting list page. So we initially had the waiting list. We could have been shooting that off. And now that we no longer need the waiting list, we can now just kind of send people here. So from a design perspective, there's a few things that I'd probably want to change about this. Claude made this one, whereas Codex made this one. And I honestly prefer the Codex version. So I'd probably want to say like, hey, this is our currently waiting list. Let's make the vibe of the actual landing page more suited to this, and we'd redo that, right? But this is what we have. And then we have our whole thing where we go through either logging into an account. So if I come here and I log in with the one that we already have, I'm pretty sure this should have stayed because we put this through the same database on the back end. Cool. We log into the actual account. This is the example that we tried earlier. But if I sign out, now I should be able to actually sign up for an account and go through the whole authentication go through all of that one more time because this is deployed, but it's not yet connected to a GitHub repo. If I go back to my projects, you can see we're still not connected. And that's okay. It just means that this wouldn't auto update. We'd have to say, hey, Cloud Code, go update this on Vercel using the CLI, blah, blah, blah. But what we want to do is we want to connect it to GitHub. And before we do that, we want to make sure and check in on Codex over here. So this ran for about 45 minutes and it fixed a ton of stuff. So we rotated the key. We did all the things that it said. Look at all these things that it verified. 7 out of 7 on the application tenant attacks. We had database migration checks. We had webhook guards, stripe mapping, logo attacks, PDF attacks, all this kind of stuff. So I'm really glad that we took the time to do this. And this is probably something that we'd maybe want to do every single week as more users join, as we add things to the code base. So this should all be synced together. What I want to do now is we want to start to actually connect this to GitHub so that we can sync everything over. So Codex just finished up a security review. I want you to basically make sure that we have everything in one place so that we can push the most recent version of all of these changes that we've made to GitHub. And then I can connect GitHub to Vercel for auto deploys. And then we're going to go ahead and set up like the custom domain and everything like that. And we'll do a full sweep through to make sure that this is all working as expected. Just like the exact same way that we did this earlier with the actual landing page, how it's connected to Vercel, we're going to do as well with this one, which is the actual application. You can see there's been 55 commits. So we have been making tons of different versions on here. This is what we've been working on pretty much the whole day as far as, like the product actually goes, the product and the plumbing. And what else I wanted to show you guys in here in Client Pack, if I go to the environment variables, here's everything. This is where Cloud Code wrote all of this to Vercel. It did all of these that we would have manually had to plug in one by one. So this is awesome. It has all of these secrets. The only thing we'll have to update is when we do want to switch this to live billing, so our real Stripe, we would obviously come into Stripe, we would switch out of our sandbox and we would go back to a real environment, and then we would grab those API keys. And it's the exact same process as you guys saw. Where we come into here, we go to our developer, we go to our API keys, and then right here I have my publishable and my secret. You can see these are sk_test and pk_test. But when you leave the sandbox and you go to your actual real environment, you'll have pk_live and sk_live. So that's how you know that they're actually real and they are no longer in a sandbox. Super easy change. And then you could tell Cloud Code, hey, I just put these new ones in the .env. Can you go ahead and push those to Vercel and update the environment variables? And we should be all set. So it's going to go over and make sure that it understands what Codex did. It makes sure that the code base is completely merged together in one master branch. We're going to push that to GitHub, and then we'll get this deployed for real on Vercel with auto updates, and we will connect a real domain. Okay, so now the most updated version of what we're working on is actually live because we've connected it here as a GitHub repo. As you can see, if I go back home, you can see that this is now connected to our client pack application repo. Now, I did run into some issues you can see down here, because what happens sometimes is if you aren't authenticated in, or sorry, like Codex or Claude will try to push changes to your GitHub repo and then it gets blocked on the Vercel deployment. So basically just tell Codex or Claude what's happening and it'll be able to fix it. In this video, the Vercel deployments hasn't been super smooth. Typically when I push things to GitHub and then Vercel picks it up, it's like super simple, nothing happens. But every once in a while you will run into issues, but once again, they're pretty easy to solve. So we now have clientpack.vercel.app. We can go in, we can do everything. And before we go through the final flow, I want to give this a real domain first. I want to give this a domain that we actually like fully own. So I'm going to do here is go over here down to the domain section. I'm going to go ahead and buy a domain. I'm just going to do this right through Vercel to make it super simple in this video. Once again, you don't have to. If you have one on Squarespace or GoDaddy or Namecheap, you can bring that in with the DNS records. It's very simple. Claude or Codex can walk you through. But I'm going to do what we were looking at earlier, get client pack. We'll see if we can do we'll do getclientpack.com. We'll go ahead and grab this. I have bought that domain. As you can see, it's going to go ahead and get that set up. And now I can just add this to the project. It should be super, super simple. Let's see if I can go ahead and give this page a refresh. What is going to happen with our domain? Cool. Okay. So I think I'll click add existing. We should be able to type in, what is it? Getclientpack.com. There it is. I want to connect this to our production, and I'm just going to click on add domain. And it's pretty much just setting everything up right now. So if you wanted to bring one in that wasn't in Vercel, you would basically just type it in, and then it would give you, it'd say, hey, add this to the A record, add this to the C name, whatever it is, and you would just have to set that up super easy. But because you bought this in Vercel, it's going to just be able to do that automatically, and it's getting that set up right now. So now if you look at this, you can see the domain that we have is getclientpack.com, and that's what I can click into and go through this flow. So let's do one final test here. I'm going to log into our account that we made earlier. Aha, interesting. So when I try to log in, it booted me out. I'm going to try that one more time and see if this is working. Okay, so the login does not seem to be working. I'm going to just go back into Codex and we're going to see what's going on here. This is why it's so important to, even though you're just simply migrating something from one environment to the other, you have to be careful about it, because I think it has to do with the authentication that we set up. I think it has to do with our security thing, because one of the things that we had to do that I didn't actually show you guys was we had to create another table, because when Codex ran the security, it said, hey, well, let's add these other two tables in here to be able to track things better. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. So maybe it messed with something on the back end with our subscriptions. I'm coming in here and taking a look. We can see we have one of these got canceled. I don't think any of this is what's messing with the app not working. So let's just go back into Codex. Cool. So that looked like it worked on Vercel. But now when I am trying to actually log into the app, I'm logging in with my nateherc88@gmail.com. And when I click the login button, it just sends me to a page that says that it's not working. So can you help me figure out why this isn't working and what we need to do here so that we can make sure that the app is working as it should be? Now, this is really weird because I just logged in. As you guys saw, I just logged in and it worked, but this is not the right domain. This is my .vercel.app domain. So I'm not sure if it just was taking some time to transfer over. Let's try it one more time real quick. Or if there's genuinely something wrong with the real URL. Okay, yeah, there's something wrong with the real URL. So we have to figure out why that is. That's probably some context that I should add to this. So I'm going to tell it real quick. Okay, so it's interesting because on the clientpack.vercel.app, it works fine, no issues. But what I did is I connected a new domain. I connected getclientpack.com. And when I connected that, that's the URL, that's the domain that's actually having these issues. So I'm not sure if that helps, give you some more context to help figure out what this is. But okay, never mind. It looks like you already figured that out. It says right here, I found a strong production-only clue. Your failed login came from clientpack.com, but the request stopped inside the security middleware and never reached the login action. That matches the app's cross-site protection, rejecting the form when next public site URL is configured for a different host name, most likely clientpack.vercel.app. I'm confirming the response status and the configured production host name before changing anything. Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense now. Let's see if it can handle this or if we're going to have to redeploy this whole project. Hopefully that's not the case, but let's see what it's able to find. It looks like it's going to be able to redeploy to this domain, so we should be good, but obviously we'll have to test that out. Okay, so it's saying that this should work now. It confirmed that All of that exists. Confirm that it changed this variable. Confirm that the Supabase security tables are deployed. So let's open this up again. This is the correct domain. And fingers crossed that this works this time. Okay, this is a good sign. It's loading a little bit longer. Cool. There we go. And we have, once again, our data is still there. Remember, if we were to log in as someone else, then this data wouldn't be there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sign out. I'm going to sign up for a new account on the real domain, and we're just going to run through this flow again and make sure that everything's working. The database, the payment, all of that. Okay, cool. So I just signed up, and now it's asking us to confirm our account once again. Here we go. This is the Supabase auth email. So I'm going to go ahead and click confirm email address. This once again takes us to the waitlist. So if it really is annoying me, I could go ahead and change this, but right now that's not a big deal. It would also be as easy as one prompt to change where that hyperlink goes to. And now we have once again logged in with a new account. So there we go. We are going through the onboarding, everything like that. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump straight to the billing because we already know what that onboarding looks like. And we're going to sign up for $39 a month. And we're going to see if this still works. So it takes us to the Stripe page. This is obviously still the sandbox. We just want to make sure that this is all working on the new domain, which it should be because we're in Stripe, and that looks great. Boom. So as you can see, that all worked. We are now on a monthly plan. We have 25 decks, and we could go ahead and finish getting onboarded. We could make our first project. But the point being, if you're logged in with a different account, it will save your data, it will save your password, and you can authenticate into your own account. And all the subscription stuff is set up. If we go back to our Supabase table, you can see that we just have a new entry come in. If I refresh, there we go. You just saw it pop in. And that is the one that we just did. So we have all of this on the back end set up, and our agents know how to navigate it, change it, look through it, all of that kind of stuff, which is obviously great for us. And now, like I said, it would just be a matter of switching out of test mode. We would click exit sandbox. We would go to our developer keys once again, and then we would just switch these in to Vercel, and boom, we'd be all set to actually start receiving real payments. Okay, so it is 5:10 p.m., which means that we've been working on this pretty much since like 9 a.m. So it's been about 8 hours. Now, think about the fact that those 8 hours were not just me sitting down working the whole time. I actually did a few other things today, a few other projects I worked on, and I also had lunch, went down to the gym, went on a walk. I was able to keep working on this all day because all you guys saw me really do was think about what I wanted and prompt it in a pretty careful way. The majority of the actual work that was done, I was kind of just sitting here watching it and making sure that nothing crazy was happening, and I was just giving it feedback and helping to steer it, really. But once again, I think the really important thing to take away here is that you're not going to be able to build a SaaS in one day and go scale that thing to $1 million. You're 100% able to build a waiting list and to start building ideas and to start building demos and POCs and start shooting those off to people, maybe even start figuring out how you can start to acquire clients for it. But you're not going to be able to like build an app in one day with AI, scale it to the moon, and make $1 million and never have to touch it again. I think that that's just very unrealistic. Now that I've been able to sort of peek behind the curtains of what it actually takes to build an AI first SaaS, and when I've been building different products and different automations on the back end, and I know how much maintenance is truly required as you scale the usage and users and throughput, and there's support, and there's all these other things to be thinking about, especially if you want to actually build a brand and not just like a quick cash grab. All right, so now that you guys have seen kind of like the building side, what does it look like to sort of try to come up with the idea, plan it out, start to build it, start to verify, start to integrate some stuff. And obviously that's just like one iteration of the loop, because you're going to keep doing that. You're going to keep looping, improving things, updating things. That's just the nature of a product. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like and how you should be thinking about getting customers, keeping them. How do you actually make decisions for the business? These types of things. So let's just start to dive in here. I want you to think about, as I'm going through this deck, what it looks like to get your first, let's just call it 50 customers, because as I kind of alluded to earlier, there's different levels to scale. Sometimes a certain amount of customers is going to require different things on the back end, technical scaling infrastructure. But then there's also going to be different things to think about when it comes to scale. Other types of hires you might need to make, other types of automations you might need to make, and it's going to sort of grow as you grow. So I think it would be honestly a terrible thing for the business if you built your product and then the next day you had 10,000 customers sign up. It would probably break, it would destroy the reputation. You would learn a lot of lessons too late. So you think about it in the phases. First milestone, let's just say getting your first 10 customers, getting your first 50 customers, right? Okay. So more attention cannot rescue a confusing offer. So what does that mean? Let's say I right now have distribution, right? Because I've got a YouTube channel, I've got a community. because I have so much attention coming into the content I put out, that doesn't mean that I could automatically just go sell a ton of some sort of SaaS tool, because the offer has to be extremely clear. Now, remember earlier in this video when we started building, the first thing we started talking about was pain. And there's a reason why I put this first, because we have to start with something that's actually a problem. If you think about what most people say when they had invented something, they basically say, I saw this problem in my own life and I had to solve it because there was nothing else out there that I found that solved this problem. So that is the pain. From there, you obviously have to be talking to one specific person. Same thing, even if you're service-based, even if you have a YouTube channel, whenever you have some sort of goal, whatever your goal is, you're usually trying to, you need to target one specific person. You have to narrow that down, because if you're trying to talk to the entire world, the majority of the world's not going to be interested at all, and they're not going to feel that exact pain point. So it's not going to work. And then the promise is basically, okay, you have this person and this person experiences this pain. How does my tool or my service or product, how does my offer actually answer that pain point, actually solve that pain point? And once you get clear on those three things, you actually have an offer that you can go sell, because you can communicate it clearly. A lot of this stuff is like, you probably have a pain point in your life that there are probably hundreds of tools out there that solve it, but maybe you just don't know of them because you're not aware of them, because no one's communicated that to you clearly enough, right? So in our specific example with Client Pack, the person was an agency owner who was dealing with clients. The pain is all of these sales calls coming in, proposals being due, not having some sort of consistent framework to generate them, and not being able to communicate the value and justify the ROI. And the promise is just, hey, you're going to be able to upload your transcripts. So all you have to do is you sit there in the meeting, you talk to them, you do the discovery, you find out the value of the systems, you do what you're supposed to do, right? You're the consultant. And then you will get a client-ready deck in under an hour. And I wanted to tell you guys real quick about, like, why did I decide to join Glido? Why did I decide to co-found Glido with the team, with Giannis Moore, with Jack Roberts, and with Dave Ebelar? And Yoris Ebelar, who isn't on here. He likes to sort of be a mysterious mystery man in the back, but these guys are grinders. So part of it was, yeah, I mean, good friends in the space, they're all doing incredible things, and I wanted the opportunity to work with them. But more realistically, the answer is that I felt this pain, and I knew that my audience also felt this pain, because I was using Whisperflow. There were certain things that I didn't love about Whisperflow. Sometimes it felt slow, sometimes it had weird formatting, and every single YouTube video that I made, people were asking, what's that tool? What's that tool? How are you talking? How are you dictating? And I knew that there was clearly a pain for me, and my audience as well was also feeling a pain, and there was some sort of need. There was some sort of, promise here of, oh, you can be more productive because you can talk into any app. And so that's why I was like, maybe it would be more cool for me, rather than just having an affiliate link to Whisperflow, to actually be able to be part of something, not even from like a, hey, we're looking for a massive exit, or hey, more money. Just because I thought it'd be really cool to actually be part of something where I could share with the community, hear feedback, share it with the Glido team, and actually have us iterate on something and work towards a vision together. And I thought that that's been just super, super cool. But that's taught me a lot about how different it is to be kind of like a service-based business model compared to a product, a SaaS product. One thing that I want you guys to think about here is, as you're thinking about your person, lots of other offers or products probably have that same person, probably have that same avatar. So one thing that you can do is you can think about, what are the other tools out there, right? What are my main competitors? And then think about, what are they priced at? Where's the value? Go download the tool, use it for a little bit, see what you like, see what you don't like. Go to Reddit, go to X, find out what are people complaining about this tool. So basically, the worst things about your competitor, you make sure that you have better, because in order for people to also switch away from a tool that they have, because there is like a switching cost associated with switching tools, switching whatever, they have to clearly see that jumping to a different product is going to save them something, whether that be, oh, it's 50% cheaper, or, oh, they have this one feature that my current provider doesn't have. There has to be a clear reason to switch. It's even harder, I think, to switch to a new tool compared to signing up for something if you don't have a solution for it already. Switching is tough. So think about the person, think about the competitors. Once you're ready to start getting this in front of people, we talked about how important it was to sell before you build, right? That's why I showed you guys building the landing page. That's why I showed you guys building like that waiting list. Validate the idea before you put a ton of time and effort into it. If you send that off to hundreds of people and nobody is interested enough to even just put their email in a waiting list or even ask a follow-up question, then that's probably a signal that either your person is completely wrong. That's one problem. Or if your person is dialed in and you're shooting this offer off to them and no one's signing up, that the offer is not valuable enough. You didn't highlight the pain enough, or you didn't highlight the promise enough. And really, a lot of what I want to talk about today is just the idea that you need data. And when you're starting off, you have basically no data, but data is what helps you actually make decisions. So what you need to do is you have to find the people that are already looking. For example, let's take my client pack, right? I know people are looking for this because they're talking about it in my community, in my YouTube comments, probably on Reddit as well. I could go to those communities and I could post, hey, I'm building this. If you guys are interested, sign up and see, like, when I release this, if you want to test it out, be beta users, I'd love the feedback. And if I'm getting lots of good support, then I know, okay, cool. I'm going to definitely keep building this for the next couple of weeks and hopefully bring them something soon. Then you want to move into like the actual help, doing the results by hand. When you're starting the business and you're starting to try to get the momentum going, you have to do a lot of things that might not scale. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to do things that might be manual, and you have to just put in more time. That's just what it takes to get something off the ground. I actually wanted to point off to this other podcast real quick, Starter Story. He did this episode with this guy who had gotten, I think, 2 different SaaS products to like 3 million ARR in a couple years. And he was talking about how he gets his first 100 users, basically the playbook. And one of the things he talked about here, let me find the exact quote. He said, like, do things that don't scale. Right here, do things that don't scale. And I thought that was really smart because he was in Reddit threads. Him personally, as the founder, was answering people's questions and he was giving them free demos. And this was creating this cool loop of, okay, I have people in this Reddit community that are interested in this, and I'm publicly sharing what my tool does. And they're getting to click the demo, they're getting to see it, and it's public, right? So I think that this is a really good video to watch. Just type in Starter Story, type in this title. It's like 14 minutes. There's a lot of golden nuggets in there. So definitely check out that video. But it just goes to show that point of, like, you have to be strategic about where you're showing up and finding where the people who are looking for your product actually live. Communities, YouTube channels, content creators, all of this type of stuff. You have to be very clear on these things in order to be clear on these next things. And then you're basically just going to need to use that proof. So when you have maybe a couple people that have used your product and they have a testimonial or they have a case study or they have like a result that they got from your tool, that's one of the things that no one else can replicate. You have to think about, what can no one repeat what can no one steal? They can steal the tech. They can steal maybe even the prompts if they play with it enough. There's a lot that can be stolen or duplicated because of AI now, especially. I saw a quote from Sam Altman. He was doing an interview with Gary Tan, and he was talking about how when he started in the sort of startup space, things that took him and his team 3 months to build out, he's able to do now in, like, I think he said 7 minutes. Maybe a bit of a hyperbole, but he basically said, you're going to be able to do that in a day. And it used to take teams months. So things can be replicated easily. You have to think about, what is the moat? And that's why in this specific video, this client pack thing, I don't think this is something I would go sell for $39 a month, at least not where it is now. I would probably just sell it for free, 5 decks, and then I would maybe try to scale that up on some sort of subscription. But I think that this alone is not valuable enough. If this was like an open source repo, I think people would love it. But I don't think people would want to pay for that because they would try to just reverse engineer and steal it. I think the only thing in my current client pack that was truly a moat was my prompting in it. And if I would have put more time into it, the prompting would have been better. But that was really the only IP I had, and it's not super, super defensible. But proof is defensible. Proof is something that no one else can replicate because it's your client and it's your tool. So that's something else you should really be thinking about. Once you've collected proof and case studies, how do you put that back into the flywheel? How do you reinvest that? Almost like the way that once you achieve, you're starting to get going on scale, you're taking that revenue and you're putting that money back into the business rather than going and buying watches or whatever. You're taking the money, you're putting it back into the business for ads. That's what you want to do with the proof testimonials too. You're going to take those, put it back into the business, put it in the copy, put it in your newsletter, put it on your website. You have to reinvest that data. And then you just have to kind of repeat that cycle. Now, what I want you to think about is how you can turn that playbook into 1 week of action. What can that actually look like? Find 30 people based on your type of buyer, right? And you can start doing some cold outreach here because these are going to be super personal. They're not going to be automated. They're going to be you collecting data. It's just about you having conversations with people. What do you think of this tool? Does it sound valuable? Blah, blah, blah. How much would you pay for it? All of these sorts of questions. I'm not sure if you guys did this when you were in college or whenever, but I remember I would go do like these studies where people, like these big labs or whatever, they'd pay you to just come in for an hour, try their cereal, try these little experiments, and they'd pay you good money just to sit there and do something. And I used to think like, what a steal! Like I'm just doing, but the reason is they're getting primary data there. They're collecting data that no one else has because they're actually conducting experiments and they're willing to pay for it because out of all that data, you can actually make a data-backed decision. Now, I think there's a lot of value in trusting your gut and using your intuition for decisions, but I think ultimately the best way to make decisions is to rely on the data. And when you're starting off, you're going to have to sort of like try things. You're going to have to throw things at the wall, see what sticks because you just don't have the data. But as your business expands, as your business grows, you get more and more data. And it would surely be a shame if you're not using that data and leveraging it to make decisions, because that's another thing that is a huge moat, the data. Think about Anthropic and OpenAI. They have so much data. And that's truly one of the things that's keeping them going is because that data can be used to train their models to make better models. At the end of the day, it's going to get to a point where I believe most models are going to get pretty even. Because Anthropic and OpenAI and these other companies have so much data, they're going to be able to leverage that in different ways. And that data is insanely valuable. So use your data, please. And then once you started to get people to try it out and you've been getting some results, ask them to show you those results, right? Like you have to actually be able to see it and use it. Now, when it comes to pricing is an interesting question in all of the world, right? When it comes to service-based or when it comes to a product. And I think this is also a matter of calibrating. Like you're going to probably try some pricing and it's not going to work. You're going to bump it around and that's just natural. But what I want you to think about as well is how does the user get a real result? When in the cycle of someone trying your product or using your product, do they have that aha moment where it's like, damn, like this thing's actually good. I could picture myself using this. Because let's say it would take them 3 to 5 generations, right? So maybe it's like an image model, and you typically see that people don't have that aha moment till like their 5th image generation. Then maybe you want to make that 5th image generation, make it all free up until then, so that they actually realize the value enough to be able to go start paying for it, right? Especially, think about this, guys. A subscription is so much harder to sell. It's so much harder to sell a subscription than a one-time product. Let's say you're selling a product for $50 or you're selling the exact same product for $10 a month. It's probably going to be harder to sell that for $10 a month. Like just much harder, just because a subscription on a cold person who's never done business with you before, it's so hard to sell. That's why these things like these sort of like tripwires and funnels exist, where you first get someone to buy from you in the beginning. So maybe you even have them buy a $2 PDF from you, and then you can try to sell them a subscription later. Like subscriptions are just harder to sell to a cold audience. That's just the truth. So think about some of these things. Maybe your product isn't quite ready yet. Do you really want to put a bunch of people through it and have them pay for it? And then they're just gonna be like, oh, this isn't good. I'm never coming back. Unsubscribe, cancel, brand is ruined. That's where you put them in like a beta. Maybe they get value in one sitting. In 5 minutes, they can get value. So like in our example with the client pack, maybe we found that after one generation, they have that aha moment. Wow, I put in all my transcripts and in 5 minutes, I got this deck, which I'm ready to go present to my client. Value in one sitting, then okay, cool. We give them one free deck. Anything they want more than that, they have to pay. And also if they want the watermark removed, they have to pay. And I'm not saying that's right always, but figure out where the value sits. If you need to use it over and over for days, then maybe give them a free trial, right? So for something like Glido, if they've never done voice to text, where do they actually see the real moment of like, wow, this stuff really makes me more productive? Is it in the first transcription? Probably not. Is it maybe in the first day of usage or the first 100,000 words? Where does that sit? And how do we let them use it for free until they sort of hit that aha moment and it becomes sort of more like a sticky thing? I almost think about the way that OpenAI and Anthropic are right now charging a subscription for Codex Cloud Code. Right now, it's very cheap, right? If you're on the $200 a month plan for either of them, you're getting about $8,000 to $14,000 of inference. They're basically getting us hooked to this for cheaper, because then once they raise the prices, if they raise the prices, a lot of us are probably still going to pay for it because we've seen the value, we felt the value. Whereas if they would have come out the gate with like, hey, by the way, this is a $2,000 a month subscription, there's probably a lot of us that would never have even tried it out and never have even realized the value. So think about that. Okay, now let them see the result, charge for the next job. So in my example, right, real transcript, they get the complete deck with watermark, and that's completely free. And then if they want more, that's when they actually get on the paid plan. Now, your decisions improve as you learn from the customers. It would surely be a shame Like I said, if you didn't leverage the data. So let's say you get your first 10 customers and your mind is just, okay, wow, scale, 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 more, more, more. And you throw 10 more customers in, then 50 more customers in, then 50 more customers in. Those customers might have all a bad experience, churn out, and never come back. But maybe you get 10 and then you hold it off, right? And then you see what those 10 customers do. You see when they leave, why did they leave? Reach out to them, have an automatic survey. Was it for a competitor? Was it because of the price? Was it because it didn't give you what you needed? You guys have all probably canceled the subscription and it's asked you why, and you send a little feedback. That data is obviously very important. You need to know the reason why people are leaving. And it's really interesting because maybe sometimes people are leaving for a specific reason that doesn't actually make sense to you. And it's like, maybe that person wasn't the right avatar in the first place. So let's just take a quick example, right? So for Client Pack, let's say some people are leaving because they say that the deck isn't sort of like generating the type of results they're looking for. But then you actually dig in and you find out that they don't even run an AI agency. Maybe they run like more of they run an ad agency. So clearly this isn't going to work for them. So you have to be thinking a little bit about collecting the data, analyzing it, and when you get more and more, right, it's a little harder to filter through. But it's just a question of like subjective data, like feedback and surveys, should sometimes be taken with a grain of salt. And you have to really look at the average and figure out what's the story telling you, rather than just like trusting the data blindly. I think that's where you get into like objective data versus qualitative. Objective maybe being more something a little along the lines of like, okay, how many days to activation? Meaning when they sign up, when do they get the first deck generated? Like when do they basically take the first action? Because there's a huge drop off to people that sign up. And if they don't activate right away, or if they never activate, they're going to churn out, obviously. So it's all part of that experience. So watch what they do, get feedback, and collect what they're doing, and put it right back into the product. If 5 out of 10 people have complained that it's too slow, see what you can do to speed it up. Those types of things. And then you're going to keep rolling out to more customers. Just be careful. You don't want to scale too fast. Obviously, that's like a good problem to have. If you have so much demand where you have to block it off and have a wait list, it's a great problem to have. But you don't want to just start blasting it to 12 different communities right away. You want to be careful about it. So people will sign up, they will get their first result. Hopefully they'll want to use it again, and that's when they'll pay for it. And they have to keep being able to use it. If they only get value for 30 days, then what's really the point? They're going to churn out. You want to see what you can do to increase the lifetime value. Basically, when someone becomes a customer, how much money do we make out from them in total, on average, lifetime? Now, if they stop or cancel, you ask why, you group the reasons, and then you fix one problem at a time based on what the data is telling you. Now, how do you think about the pricing without guessing? So in our example, we priced this at $39 a month, and this was kind of a guess. This was what the agent told us based on the data. But if I was really going to market with this tool, I don't think I would do it like this. I would probably launch this for free, right? Like I think I would probably have everyone just do it for maybe $5, or sorry, not $5. Maybe everyone gets 5 free deck generations, and I would get people to, use that, right? And then I would talk to them about, how many decks on average do you actually need to generate per week? And how much would you pay per month for something like this? And I would ask them questions like this and find out where the value really lies and what the result is worth. And it's not uncommon to have like 3 plans, right? You have like a free plan, a starter plan, and a growth plan or something like that. See which ones people are buying and see which ones people are actually, what features they're actually using and how you can play around with that model, the freemium model, right? And I think that a lot of times when tools are getting off the ground, they play with their pricing a lot. We've seen a bunch of tools even now that have been up and running for 10 plus years are constantly changing their pricing. So it's always kind of adjusting to inflation, to the market, to competitors, to the data. There's a lot of things that are going to go into the way that you actually go ahead and price this. But when it comes to pricing, you still have to ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to be profitable. So let's say someone pays me $39 for month 1. That doesn't mean I get $39 for the business, right? We have payment fees, we have the API costs, we have other things. We even have some staff that we have to take care of. We have hosting costs. So figure out what does it actually cost for you to not only deliver for one client, but also to acquire that client. Because if you're spending money on ads, if you're spending money paying creators to make videos about your tool, that's something that goes into your whole budget. And you have to obviously be profitable to achieve scale. And that's why I would not recommend doing something like running ads to your offer that you don't yet know if the ads are going to work. Because in order to run ads, you have to be able to spend a decent amount of money. If you're only spending like $500 a month, $1,000 a month, Google or Meta or wherever you're running the ads probably doesn't even have enough to give you a broad enough audience to see who is resonating and which of your copy and creative is working. And so if you're just kind of throwing 500 to $1,000 down the drain every month, that's a complete waste of that money. Whereas I would prefer, if I were you, I would take that money and I would go pay smaller creators that have a really warmed up community and audience to show off the tool. $250 here, $500 here. I think that will be a much better use of your investment. And then you can see as you're making your own organic content, which is something I 100% think you guys should do for a tool. You're making your own organic content, you're paying creators to make content, you're seeing which of these pieces of content are outliers, and then just take that, put that behind an actual ad and run it, right? Like you're basically double dipping there. You're creating your own organic flywheel of content, you're paying creators, and then whatever works best, just put money behind it and push it more. And I think that's really the way to do it. I think that cold email and cold ads are great to achieve true scale once you've had an offer that is proven and once you have the budget. Otherwise, I think it's a waste of money. I think it's the numbers game, volume negates luck. And that's not where I would start. I would start with my own organic content. I would start with doing things that don't scale, posting in Reddit communities, writing blogs, making my own organic content, doing things that are a bit more hands-on as the founder and a little bit more sort of like grunt work, because you have to be in there and you have to be getting as much data as you can at the beginning. And like I said, you're able to then reuse the results into all of those things. Writing blogs, comparing yourself to other tools. Let's say, for example, Glido, we have competitors in Super Whisper, Whisperflow, Aquavoice. We could make blogs and we could publish articles and pieces of content about, the top 5 alternatives to Whisperflow. And we obviously include Glido in there. We could do Glido versus Aquavoice comparisons, and we can, have stuff in there. And this is going to be ranking in search. This might even appear in AI search results. And the more you can get out there, the more you can just show up where your audience is looking, and the more you can show up as a brand on different social medias and on the internet, the better, because you're going to start to be picked up a little bit more. Communities, obviously, putting in the results, putting in case studies, referrals, obviously, maybe you have some sort of affiliate program. Once you really want to get the flywheel going, you can give people bonuses, you can have them invite friends. And then of course, personal messages, just actually reaching out to people in certain communities, reaching out to business owners, reaching out to your network, that sort of stuff as well. So like I said, I think right now it's a new world where creators and communities is probably one of the biggest levers you can pull. Super small creators are getting brand deals all the time. Large creators are getting brand deals all the time. Everyone who's out there building in public and building an audience, they're getting brand deals. So take advantage of that, right? I think if you remember, I made a video a while back on an app called Cal AI. This guy basically vibe coded this fitness AI app for like nutrition, tracking calories and whatnot. And he built it obviously with Claude. And then his whole scaling strategy to start was just paying creators. He was finding fitness creators. So they weren't even in the AI niche, right? But he knew who his audience was and he knew creators that had that audience. And then he paid them to show off his tool. And that worked really, really well for him. You find creators that have the right community, you give them a free account and you show them what the tool does. You basically are able to then pay them to make the content, and you can have like a performance bonus, you can have a fixed rate, and then you can give them even like an affiliate code so that when they also have people sign up, they're more incentivized for that because they're getting paid on the back end of that as well. And they have the guarantee of like, okay, this piece of content, I'm still going to get $500 no matter what. Like I said, that's such a better use of your funds than going straight away to putting $500 behind a meta ad or something like that. Trust me, working with creators is going to be a huge unlock. And it's also interesting because what we've seen is like smaller creators actually have sometimes better conversion numbers, and people and brands prefer to work with smaller ones because the audience feels like the creator is more human. The community feels smaller. The person feels more sort of like attainable or like reachable. I don't know exactly the word I'm looking for, but small audiences are very strong. There's a lot of brand authority there. So don't sort of like overlook a creator because maybe they only have like 5,000 Instagram followers or something. Those 5,000 Instagram followers are probably super bought in and super warmed up to that specific creator. And then what you want to be doing, of course, is basically tracking everything you're doing. If you pay these creators this much money and they put out these pieces of content, track them. What was the hook in that content? What was your budget for them? When you're putting out content, tracking all of that. When you are reaching out to people, tracking all of that. The more stuff that you have tracked, even if it's just like a super, super bogus Google sheet, that data, trust me, you're going to want to look back on that and you're going to want to be able to analyze that for your next iterations when you have a next month's budget that you have to spend on creators and organic content and other things like that too. So you're not ready to run ads until you can answer yes. Do you have the right person? Do you have a clear promise? Do you know exactly when they get their first real outcome, when they receive the first real value? When will they actually come back? And can you track to know exactly where they're coming from? And when you have all of these answers and when you've sort of proven that offer, you can start to run ads behind it. Of course, you also need the budget as well. Now, I think I've alluded to this earlier, but here's something that we've actually specifically felt with Glido that I think is really important to think about. How often have you bought a tool and then unsubscribed and then resubscribed? Not very often. Like, you kind of have your first impression of that tool and then you don't really think about revisiting it. But what's happening to that tool is they're constantly iterating, right? They're updating based on churn reasons, they're updating based on feedback. They have a huge roadmap of what's to come. And so if you invite too many people at the beginning and you get a ton of feedback and tons of people saying, hey, I don't like this tool for this reason, and then they leave. Well, what if you go fix that? And if that functionality would have been fixed in the first place or would have been there in the first place, they probably would have never churned. And so now you just lost a bunch of people who were kind of like your perfect avatar and have proven that they are willing to buy. And now it's hard to get them back. You know, you can't just, you can try to obviously blast them and say, hey, here's what you missed in this tool this week. We updated this and this. You want to come try it again? But it's just so much harder. So think about, obviously, like I said, for many reasons, not scaling too fast. So your simple 30-day plan. Week 1 is just go have conversations, find out what's going on, list 30 buyers, have conversations, join communities, see what people are talking about, do as much of that gathering as you can and asking people questions. Week 2, pick some people, get them on a free plan, show them how the tool works, understand what they like about the onboarding flow, understand where they had an aha moment if they ever did. Just be very hands-on with them, give them as much value as you can, and hopefully they're going to give you back golden data, golden feedback. And then you're going to learn. You're going to see what you're hearing from them. You're going to see what else needs to be fixed. And you're going to keep doing that. You're going to keep fixing. And then you're going to repeat. You're going to keep doing this very manual process until you get to a point where you feel like you're ready to sort of start like opening the doors a little bit more. And then I think you sort of unleash the content creator strategy. You start pumping out organic content. You start doing all of these things, writing up the blogs, writing up these SEO articles, doing these things that help you just have a better presence so that as your product is getting better and better, you now have a good system in place. And you can stop doing some of those things that are very hands-on for you, that are very hard to scale. And now you can start to more focus on collecting feedback from the users and driving the vision, figuring out where do you want to go. But also, more importantly, think about where do you not want to go? What bucket of tools do you not want to be associated with? And what bucket of tools do you want to be associated with? And how do you constantly see what the competitors are doing, analyzing their feedback as well, and making your tool do one thing really well? I think that's a really important thing to learn, is that tools that are more defensible and that are clearer and have a better offer, they do one thing better than everyone else. They don't have to do 5 things. And I think a lot of us think, oh, you know, I have this hub, I have this AI tool, I can build as much as I want. I'm going to make this as useful as possible. All that does is it creates overwhelm, especially when you're trying to get off the ground, especially when you're trying to scale. You need one super, super clear pain. One super clear pain. I'm just going to go back to the slide because it just helps paint the picture. One super clear pain and one super clear promise for one super specific type of person. And if you try to add, oh, but there's 3 pain points and I have 2 different promises and I could picture like 5 different types of people using this, that's cool. That's okay. And maybe one day you can scale there when you have you have 10,000 paying users and you can offer like a team plan or you can offer like a scale plan and you can have different upsells and downsells throughout. But when you're starting, just start with one of each and go as clear as possible. Just do one thing better than anyone else and you will see a lot of success when you do that. All right, so I hope that this was helpful. I'm going to put this deck inside of my free school community, just like everything else that I do. As you guys know, if you join the free school community, which is in the link in the description, you'll go to the classroom and then you'll click on all YouTube resources and you'll find everything in there. So if you want that deck, if you want all the other skills and everything else I've mentioned in this video or other videos, just head to the free school community. But that is going to do it for this video. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed and I hope that you learned something new. And if you did, please give it a like. It helps me out a ton. And as always, I appreciate you guys making it to the end of the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks, everyone.